All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the City Commission meeting of May 24th, 2022. I want to remind you all, please, at this time, if you have any cell phones or electronic devices that may make noise, please silence those to not disturb the meeting. And at this time, I'll call this meeting to order. Val, please call the roll.
Commissioner Penny?
Here.
Commissioner Curry?
Here.
Commissioner Danio?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Mayor Villa?
Here. And I will ask you all to please stand for the invocation led by Commissioner Curry and continue standing afterwards for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Lord, we come to you tonight and ask you to bring this commission the wisdom and knowledge to continue to beautify and make our city the greatest little city that Volusia County has. We thank you for all that you have given us through the last couple of weeks since we met last. You've blessed each of our lives in many different ways. But Lord, we ask you tonight to please pray for our country. There's a lot of crazy people out there and a lot of crazy things going on, Lord, and we just need you to pray for us and give us guidance. In your name I pray, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Commissioner Curry, for that invocation. And now we will recess the City Commission meeting and convene as the CRA. And tonight on our CRA agenda, our first item is number 1, 2022-R-34. Mr. Simpson.
Resolution number 2022-R-34 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, authorizing the city manager to sign a proposal agreement between the Community Redevelopment Agency of Holly Hill and Rick Hamilton, providing for severability and providing an effective date.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Forte.
Okay, so we spoke about this a little bit at the last meeting, and you gave me the direction to go ahead and enter into an agreement with Rick Hamilton. That agreement is in your agenda packet. It shows what the salary rate would be, plus the other fees and expenses. Scott did review this, and Rick Hamilton did approve it. It's on here for your approval and authorization for me to go ahead and execute that. Rick is in the audience this morning in case you might have any questions specifically for him.
This morning?
Say what?
This morning?
Did I say this morning?
Yes, you did. That's close enough.
You're having a rough day.
Feels like
Slept
morning.
in.
Feels like morning.
I was letting it slide. I was letting it go. That's close. I was letting it go.
We may, based on this, we may be here till tomorrow.
Nope,
So if you have any
this is
questions for Rick,
finale.
he's here. He can possibly answer anything you might have. I'm real confident in my discussions with Rick and what he has done in the past, and I have great hopes and idealism for what's going to happen over there at Pictona. We are going to meet with the folks at Pictona on, I think, January 10th to kind of go over the playing field a little bit of who does
January?
what.
June 10th?
January
Did I
10th.
say January?
Oh my God. You couldn't let me slide.
Hi.
I was like, January.
Scott, take that cup.
June 10th.
Hey, Scott, will you switch chairs?
Jeez.
You are in rare form today, Mr. Forte. And
I actually slept last night, too.
You can't sleep anymore.
No, I think it's better with the insomnia. So at any rate, if you have any questions, we'll go ahead and ask it. If not, we're ready to move forward.
all right, thank you, Mr. Forte. I will call up Mr. Hamilton if you'd like to come up here to the stand and just ask you to introduce yourself and just a very, very short background on what you have done. I know that you're a very accomplished person and you've done a lot of important things here in Volusia County. If you could just briefly talk. I know some people hate to talk about themselves, but I'm asking you just very briefly.
I'm not really big on talking about myself, but I have been in this business almost 40 years. I retired from the city of Tampa in 2018, and quite frankly felt lost and looking for something to get back into the business and doing it for a little while longer, as long as my mind and body are still working. I enjoy it very much. I've done many things, Mayor, from all the entertainment for the 1982 World's Fair I ran your Ocean Center here in Daytona Beach for 19 years, the City of Tampa Department of Tourism, and the Convention Center Director for 8 years. Have done everything from working with startup groups to some of the biggest names in the world as far as concert and event promotion. And I look forward to this opportunity, and I think we can do a lot of good things for the city of Holly Hill.
I really appreciate that. I just wanted to point out how talented, and your resume speaks for itself. So we appreciate you coming to Holly Hill and helping us to promote all the wonderful things that are coming here to our city. I will open it up to any questions, if anyone had any questions for Mr. Hamilton.
No?
All right, is there anything further you wanted to add before?
I look forward to getting to know each of you and working with you individually and hopefully as a group, and let's doing some good things together.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Just for clarity, he's going to be working as an independent contractor for the city, not as an employee.
Correct. Did I say otherwise?
No, I said salary, and I
Oh,
wanted
okay,
to
you said-
indicate that it meant,
Okay,
just
yeah.
added to the third mistake I might have made in that speech.
Third time's a charm, Joe.
We'll cut you off on right there, Joe. All right. The only thing I wanted to just briefly discuss is in the additional comments in the contract, when we talk about extra expenses that could come up from maybe travel or other things, would that go under your spending ability? Would you be the approval person for
Yeah,
that?
hopefully, everything will be pre-approved, but there may be occasions where something may be post-approved, but it'll all still be within my spending ability. I can't suspect anything's going to come back in the thousands of dollars.
Right.
It may be things like, maybe a travel expense, it may be
A lunch or gas.
a membership to an organization that Rick is part of, things like that. So it's not going to be big dollar items.
Okay, I just wanted to have that addressed. We didn't have the chance to talk about it yesterday. So with that, are there any questions about the contract? All right, at this time, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the commission about this item on our agenda tonight? Yes, sir.
Don't talk out of it, Jim.
State your name and address for the record,
Don't
please,
talk
Mr.
fast as
Cameron.
the hill. Right.
I'm Jim Cameron, 1200 Synergy Way, Holly Hill, my work. And I wanted to back up, just because, I've worked with Rick for a number of years when he was here at Ocean Center, and like I said, I can sure vouch for him, because he was always there and a good partner with Chamber of Commerce back when I was with them. So I'm really excited about having y'all on over there. And, I remember some of the events, reading about some of the events over there. Didn't you have a political convention, I think, over there in Tampa for that as well? And handling something like that, he does have the experience based behind him, so.
Great, thank you very much, Mr. Cameron. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Yes, sir. The original Mayor Villa.
Roland Villa, where do I live? Oh, 534 Eagle Drive, Holly Hill,
Do I
Florida.
have to drive you home too, Dad?
How you doing, Mr. Hamilton?
I'm doing well, sir.
The Ocean Center as we have it is the way it is because of this man and his vision, the way he was able to work with the county on it. And I just want to say, when he went to the West Coast to the Tampa Convention Center, he made it #1 in this nation. I also had business dealings with him, and I highly prize his friendship, and this is great. When you talk about entertainment, hear bands like Alabama that set the record, 9,600 seat facility. He filled it many, many times. And so this is a great investment by the city for sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this item tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with Mr. Hamilton.
Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second, motion from Commissioner Curry, a second from Vice Mayor Penny. Any discussion needed?
Just a quick little, I'm looking forward to our working relationship and the great things you're going to do for our city. We've needed this for quite some time, and I look forward to what we're going to be able to do together.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else? And I think we all reflect those statements. Thank you, Commissioner Curry. With that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we will adjourn as the CRA and reconvene as the City Commission. And we are moving to number 5, which is public comments. This is the audience's opportunity to speak to the commission about anything not on our regular agenda today. And I see a hand up. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Thank you, Ms. Heller.
Hi there, I'm Heidi Heller, 460 Ridgewood Avenue, in the future excellent city of Holly Hill. I would like to say thank you to Mr. Forte for putting the backs on the bus stop benches, which I've seen around town now, and I'm sure that people really appreciate them, and I thank for having it done. Shelters are next, so that's just something next to do. I'd like to apologize to Fountainhead because somebody smashed in their beautiful shelter, so it was destroyed a little bit. I'm sorry about that, but we do.
You didn't do it for the record, right?
Pardon?
You didn't do it,
I
right?
didn't do it, but.
All right, don't be too sorry for it.
And I'd also like to say thank you to Mr. Yunks, Steve Yunks. We found 9 of the 13 benches that I thought were disappeared at Pictona. So there's still some missing, and we found the 6 of the 6 bleachers at Pictona. So everything's looking good. So just thank you again for minor repairs.
Thank you, Ms. Heller. All right, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the commission about anything not on our regular agenda? Yes, ma'am. And name and address for the record?
Hello, Ariel Kavanaugh, 1511 Decatur Avenue, Holly Hill. I just wanted to see if there was a process or a possibility of the Holly Hill water goat. Our group is in need of a new net. Ours has a hole in it. And also some new gloves. Some, not latex, but these garden type gloves that have a wax coating on the outside of them. Ours have been in use since August of 2021. And they could use a little update.
Great. Thank you, Ariel, and I'll get you those answers as well.
Okay.
I'm
I just
sure
have a
there's-
question.
Yes, ma'am.
I saw your pictures the last time. How in the heck did you guys get that tire out of there?
It was a workout.
I mean, really?
It was like, the tire flipping workout. There was no rolling it uphill. We had to drag it slowly.
Man.
And then once we got it on level ground, we were able to.
And
I
for
don't-
everybody in the audience that doesn't know, this young lady came to us, and she spearheaded cleanup for our waterways here in Holly Hill. And
Easy.
she was with another group, got us a water goat that's back behind Seca Hall. And what is it, weekly you guys clean it out?
Yeah, right now it's been almost bi-weekly because it's been a very dry.
And they get a lot of stuff. What is your Facebook again? I don't want to get it wrong.
Holly Hill Eco Friends.
Go on there, and you can see all the good work that her and her group are doing. It's fabulous.
I don't know how that tire, I don't know if it was from a crash.
I
or
was
what.
wondering
It
how
was
it ended
this
up in
tall.
there.
It was a big tire. Yeah.
Well, I saw it. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate it, Ariel. And we'll have Mr. Forte get with you on how to get those things. Unless I'm wrong, are we able to just
Concerned that
provide
it's not
those?
even a year old and the net's no good?
So we've been, the net was provided by Lita Legary's family, and it was already used. It wasn't brand new.
Joe, I think
They-
she's talking about the dip net to get the
Yes,
stuff
To
out.
get it out.
net.
Oh, you're not talking about
It's a-
No.
So somebody
misunderstood
considered
you,
a
too.
pool skimmer, but it's
Yeah.
a
Right.
dip net,
Like
and it's
bigger.
really long, and we don't need a replacement of the pole, we just need a replacement of the head. That has a,
One-
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but there's 5 of us here, and I usually throw you under the bus and ask you for
I was
20
just
bucks.
getting ready
Do
to
you know
say,
how
why
much the
don't-
net costs?
I'll donate up to $100.
to 50 for the net.
I'll donate up to
I
$100 to
don't-
you guys for the
I
net
don't-
and gloves.
I'll split it with him.
Yeah, well, we can all split it
And
up.
I think we have
Talking
another
50
good
bucks on
Samaritan
that.
in the audience that wants to probably help out too. Hey, there we go.
You got two
We're gonna
nets.
get it taken care of for you, Ariel, so.
Hey, Ariel, don't they have all kinds of holes in those nets?
We need ones that don't allow cigarettes and lighters and.
That's right, that's right. Well, thank you for all the good
Thank you.
work that you're
Be in
doing, and
contact.
we'll figure this out. Thank you, Ariel, appreciate it. All right, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the commission about anything not on our regular agenda tonight? Seeing none, I will close. Everything okay? I will close public comments, and we will move to number 6, the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from the May 10th, 2022 regular city commission meeting and the May 10th, 2022 workshop. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? All right, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the minutes tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public participation, and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Motion. Second.
We have a motion for approval from Commissioner Johnson and a second from Commissioner Danio. Any discussion needed? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we will move to our consent agenda, items 1 through 3. Would any commissioner like to remove an item on the consent agenda? The action proposed is stated for each item on the consent agenda. Unless the city commissioner removes an item from the consent agenda, no discussion on individual items will occur, and a single motion will approve all items. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on any item on the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion for approval from Vice Mayor Penny and a second from Commissioner Curry. No discussion is needed. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we are moving to our regular agenda. Item number 1 is a request for a reasonable accommodation to the Fair Housing Act. I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Forte.
Okay, I have information that I'll read so that I don't get any wrong by winging it. But I'd like to read through this, and basically what I'm going to read to you is the information that I've put together as a response to the presentation that Robin Gamache had given to the Board of Planning and Appeals. I think first and foremost, we need to make sure that we all agree that the presentation, I see Dale is in the audience today, but Robin is not, that regardless of who does the presentation, whether it's Dale or Robin, it's the same. I don't want anybody to think that Dale's here today, that Robin can come the next time. So this is a request for the
Property.
property, okay? So let me go into what I have written in here, and it's in your agenda packet. Val, you can even pull up my discussion item if you'd like. So the city has an ordinance which prohibits horses within the city limits. A copy of the section of the city code is provided in the attached letter that's titled A Letter to Dale Gamache. In that letter, I explain the conditions for which a request for a special exception could be made under the Fair Housing Act and the city's code for making such a request. A reasonable accommodation is defined as a change, exception, or adjustment to a rule, policy, practice, or service that may be necessary to have an equal opportunity, which is very important, an equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling, including public and common use spaces, or to fulfill their program obligations. The claimant must be diagnosed as handicapped or disabled. The property owner or local government knows of the disability. The requested accommodation is denied. Much of the city's decisions is based on the highlighted above, which is whether the accommodation is reasonable, how does the disability impact her ability to use her house, and how does the accommodation alleviate this disability. No information has been submitted about her disability, how her disability prevents her from using her house. The HUD and Fair Housing Act documents provided in the requirements provide the requirements necessary for reasonable accommodation to be issued. It's important to know that in order to qualify for a reasonable accommodation, according to HUD, a person has to be able to demonstrate the existence of a disability. A determination of a disability is found on page 10 of the HUD document that I have in the attachments. The person requesting the accommodation must provide information which reasonably supports that the animal does work, performs tasks, provides assistance, and/or provides therapeutic emotional support with respect to the person's disability. Reading the verbatim minutes of the Board of Planning and Appeals meeting from May 2nd, 2022, in the request Ms. Gamache made to the Board of Planning and Appeals, she clearly states that she does not have a disability. In fact, she states that she disagrees with Dr. Nipper's diagnosis that her condition is an emotional anxiousness and did not become emotional through COVID-19 as stated in Dr. Nipper's letter. Ms. Gamache states that her condition is physiological and one which she was born with as a preemie and has dealt with her breathing condition, which causes a natural anxiousness her entire life. Ms. Gamache confirmed that she is not considered to have a disability. Since this condition has existed since her birth without any accommodations or assistance, her request does not appear to meet any of the requirements. Mrs. Gamache stated that the main reason for this request is because of a financial reason and disputes over violations between her and the stable because, according to Ms. Gamache, they reneged on their agreement. Mrs. Gamache has had the equine for 15 years and was able to travel to Port Orange to care for the animal until recently, when she suddenly determined that the 30-minute drive to Port Orange caused her to be naturally anxious. It also coincides with the timing of the financial concerns and disputes with the stable owners. Mrs. Gamache stated that her equine is a pet and a companion, and the HUD documents clearly state on page 3, assistance animals are not pets. Mrs. Gamache provided 2 documents to the Board of Planning and Appeals from a condo law firm for consumers, which references the emotional support animal letter. There are many other resources that reference recommendations of having an emotional support animal letter in the state of Florida, since the state of Florida does not have an emotional support animal registry. The emotional support animal letter referenced is the very same information I requested in my very first letter to Dale Gamache, which lists a number of items to be provided to support the request for reasonable accommodation in compliance with the Fair Housing Act. As of writing this document, Mrs. Gamache has not provided the city with any of the requested information. Finally, there is documentation in the attached with regard to manure and pasture management and ammonia fumes hazards involving horse facilities. Waste Pro has provided the city with notice via the attached email, which is in your documents, that they will not pick up bags of horse manure as part of their household collection process. Another key point that the city has been aware of, but was also brought up by residents of the Board of Planning and Appeals meeting, was Florida Statutes 817.265, which deals specifically with the consequences of a person who falsifies or provides fraudulent proof of a need for an emotional support animal. While this is important, I do not believe that the Gamaches have provided false information, because I believe the information they have provided simply does not meet the requirements. It would be different if they were making false claims, which at this point I do not believe is happening. They just simply are asking for an accommodation for which they do not qualify. I would like to take a moment to open up some of the documents in the agenda, which highlight the requirements for supporting a reasonable accommodation for a unique animal under the Florida statutes, HUD, and the Fair Housing Act, which will provide you with information to be able to make an informed decision. Afterward, I'll be able to answer any questions. At this time, the staff's recommendation is that the requester has not met the substantial burden of demonstrating a disability-related therapeutic need to have a full-size horse reside on a single-family residential property amongst other single-family homes. Therefore, the staff recommends denial of this request for reasonable accommodations. So if you'd like, Mayor, you could either ask Mr. Gamache to come up to make his case, or I can go through some of these documents and point out the facts that I just brought to your attention, which prove that this request does not meet the requirements.
Yeah, what I'd like to do, Mr. Gauch, I see you're here. I want to give you the opportunity to be able to address the commission, and so if you would like to do that, you could do that this evening. Is your wife here with you? No? Okay. You're more than welcome to come on up and present your case to the City Commission. And before you get going, I just want to remind the audience that we must keep decorum here tonight, and we expect that, and this is a city business, and we're doing the city's business. And so I would ask everybody to be respectful to one another, no matter what side you are on, and when a person is speaking, if you could listen. Everyone will have 5 minutes of public time to come up and have your say and be able to speak to the commission about this item here tonight. So just want to put that reminder out there, and I know everybody's going to play nice here. So let's get started with this. Dale, if you could introduce yourself for the public record.
My name is Dale Gamache. I reside at 1703 Anniston Avenue. As far as the diagnosis, you can see from the letter from the physician that he lays it out in there what he sees as a doctor, the condition. While the condition may have been brought on, the anxiousness may have been brought on physiologically, I think that anybody that has dealt with anxiousness or anxiety issues knows that there's an emotional part of that, while it may be physical, as far as the onset of it. And it was certainly exasperated by COVID and other issues related to age. The letter states that she does qualify for the ESA, or ECP, as the doctor used it. And from what I read and what is in the HUD one, it's the second page, page 12, down at the bottom where it says, if the individual is requesting to keep a unique type of animal that is not commonly kept in households, then the requester has the substantial burden of demonstrating a disability-related therapeutic need. Well, if you do look at the letter from the doctor, and I do take a little bit, and I did listen to the whole CD. The anxiousness was both driving to the barn, not because she didn't want to drive to the barn. It was the anxiousness of driving to the barn and being around the people that were at the barn. It wasn't financial. There's a financial aspect to it, but I can tell you that the financial is an equal burden as of right now, as far as care of the horse. That my wife was able to come up here and discuss this with you folks, not with you folks, but with the other commission. That is proof to me that it has helped. One of the things, another thing that it says is that it must be that particular animal. Well, if you look in the doctor's letter, it says her equine, not an equine, her equine serves as a helpful therapy for this behavioral health condition. She meets all the criteria for this designation. And again, in the HUD, it says that the burden is on us, and I understand that it is this animal that is the therapy. It is this animal that's the therapy. We've had dogs before. It's this animal. She calls it a pet because it's our horse. We've had it for 15 years. She has, there are other things that she has benefited from that, both in preparing for the horse as a medical condition. She's lost a lot of weight. She's studying the Bible more, again, as she always has, but hasn't. When she does have to drive around town, there's a lot less anxiety. And I wondered, Mr. Simpson, if you could something Mr. Forte said about the dwelling. Is it only the dwelling or the property?
I could read that. It's in the same HUD document you're referring to.
okay.
And it says, "A reasonable accommodation is a change, exception, or adjustment to a rule, policy, practice, or service that may be necessary for a person with a disability to have equal opportunity to use and enjoy a dwelling, including public and common use spaces."
Okay, and I think that's probably more for, like we have talked before about an apartment type or a condo kind of thing, where I think this is a little bit different in that it's dwelling, but it's also our home and our backyard and so forth. And that's all I want to add about that. While the letter of the law may say dwelling, this is our dwelling, and that I consider the backyard part of our home. And she certainly has spent more time out there than she has anywhere else. The horse is safe and secure. He's exercised daily. He's an older horse. He was a show horse, and if you've ever been around show horses, except for when they're exercising, never even get out of their stall. Very rarely, let's put it that way. He gets out every day, all day. Where he was, that wasn't happening. And not only did the anxiousness happen because of the driving, the anxiousness and being around the people at the barn and so forth, and like I spoke, when she didn't get to go to the barn because of the anxiousness, it caused more anxiousness because she didn't feel like she was taking care of what she considered to be part of her life, which caused her to not enjoy life as much. And I think that enjoying life is what the law was talking about, and the emotional support of caring for the animal caring for her. Mr. Forte, before people start speaking, would you share with the room what you shared with me about people's concerns, complaints, and so forth, and what merit it had in the discussion of what the legal part is when we first met? Do you remember what that was?
If you'll help remind me, I'll catch up.
That's right, you didn't remember it was June.
That's right.
You said that in order for their opinions to have credence in the decision, they needed to be able to establish with proof that the horse was making their property value less.
What I said is, if somebody came up and said the horse is devaluing my property, that's their personal opinion. They would have to have somebody that has the ability to make that professional opinion available.
Correct.
So for example, they couldn't say my house has been devalued because of the horse, but if they had an appraiser come and the appraiser said a horse being on that residential property devalues it, then that would be substantial.
Right, okay, thank you. Thanks for listening, folks.
Thank you, Mr.
I know a lot of you guys, and Mr. Danio, Commissioner Danio, have I ever spoken to you about the specifics of this case? Nope. Besides you pointing to Mr. Forte, Mr. Mayor Villa, have you ever spoken to me about the specifics of this case?
And Mr. Gamache, that's actually what I'm getting into right now when you sit down is ex parte communication. So,
Okay.
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and so with that, Mr. Forte, I am going to ask you to pull up some of those criteria in 1 minute after.
Okay. I'm gonna make my way
Yep.
over to Val's.
Go ahead and do
It's
that
easy.
because you'll have a minute. Right now, we're going to disclose any ex parte communication that you may or may not have had on this. So my ex parte communication has been the day after Mr. Gamache was cited. I was contacted by Mr. Gamache and cited for the horse being in the backyard, and he told me about the issue with the horse, and I didn't believe you at first that you actually had a horse in your backyard. Nonetheless, we discussed it, and I then put you in touch with Mr. Forte, and it moved on from there. I also discussed with your neighbors to the south and to the north of you, and I had a couple phone conversations and one conversation outside. Other than that, it was just the normal complaints of the case, but that's the only ex parte communication that I've had outside of these chambers. So has anyone else had any contact about anything that has to do with this case? Yes, sir.
I had at least 3 phone calls and at least 2 in-person meetings with immediate neighbors concerning this.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I have had no ex parte communication.
None about the,
Not about this.
okay.
I haven't spoke with him or anyone else about it whatsoever.
Okay. All right, so I think we have the ex parte communication part out of the way. So now, Mr. Forte, if you could
Okay,
take it
so
away.
There are a lot of attachments in the agenda item, but I'm going to focus primarily on the HUD document, which is kind of the governing part of this. And I'm just going to scroll down to what I have highlighted, and on this page is where it says that assistance animals are not pets. The animals do work, perform tasks, assist, or provide therapeutic emotional support for individuals with disabilities. We've seen no evidence that the horse is providing any of these. This is the definition I already read twice about reasonable accommodations and the use of a dwelling. This section talks about observable and non-observable disabilities, and it says that certain impairments, however, especially including impairments that may form the basis for a request for an emotional support animal, may not be observable. In those instances, a housing provider may request information regarding both the disability and the disability-related need for the animal. Housing providers are not entitled to know the individual's diagnosis. We are not the housing authority, because the way this law was put together was for a housing authority where somebody wanted, for example, an emotional support dog in a housing complex that didn't allow pets. That's why you'll see everything is referred to a housing authority. So we take the role of the position of the housing authority, and the information that it's saying that we could ask for, which we did, we have not received. So then it says, has the person requesting the accommodation provided information that reasonably supports the person seeking the accommodation has a disability? No, we have not received anything. Information about the disability can include a determination from a federal, state, or local government agency, receipt of disability benefits from Social Security, eligibility for housing assistance or a voucher received for the disability, or information confirming disability from a healthcare profession, physician, optometrist, etc. In the emotional support animal letter, which Mrs. Gamache also provided to us at the Board of Planning and Appeals, in that it says that for an emotional support animal, it is best practice to have a letter from a psychiatrist or a psychologist to provide information of what the disability is, not the diagnosis, but what the disability is. Here we have a letter from Dr. Nipper, who is a primary care physician, a general physician at the Walking Clinic in Ormond Beach. I don't believe that he has, although I don't know, but I don't believe that he has a background in psychology. Has the person requesting the accommodation provided information which reasonably supports the animal does work, performs tasks, provides assistance, or provides therapeutic emotional support for the individual's disability? We have not received anything. This is more information concerning, related to the need for the animal, and it says a relationship connection between the disability and the need for the assistance animal must be provided. This is particularly the case where the disability is non-observable and/or the animal provides therapeutic emotional support. Again, we have not received any information. Under the type of animal, it asks if the animal is kept in a household, and if it says no, then a reasonable accommodation need not be provided. But note the very rare circumstances described below, and that's where the unique animal definition comes in. Here it says if the individual is requesting to keep a unique animal, a unique type of animal that is not commonly kept in the household as described above, then the requester has the substantial burden of demonstrating a disability-related therapeutic need for a specific animal or the specific type of animal. The individual is encouraged to submit documentation from a healthcare professional confirming the need for this animal, which includes information of the type set out in the guidance of documenting an individual's need for assistance animals and housing. We've not received any of that. It says that the lack of any documentation in many cases may be reasonable grounds for denying a requested accommodations. This is the reasonable accommodation that may be necessary when a need for a unique animal involves a unique circumstance. The example is that the animal is individually trained to do work or perform tasks that cannot be performed by a dog. We don't know that that's the case. We've received nothing in regard to that. Information about healthcare professional confirms that that allergies prevent the person from using a dog. We have no evidence of that. This evening, Mr. Gamache stated that they've tried using dogs, but it didn't say that they're allergic to dogs, so we don't understand what the horse does that a dog can't do. With the animal, the symptoms or effects of the person's disabilities will be significantly increased, and the individual seeks to keep an animal outdoor at a house with a fenced yard where the animal can be appropriately maintained. The general conditions, the FHA does not require a dwelling to be made available to an individual whose tendency would constitute a direct threat to health or safety of the individuals or whose tendency would result in substantial physical damage to the property of others. In her comments to the Board of Planning and Appeals, she states that the animal is large and she's unsure of what the animal can do. So that raises a concern for safety. Reasonable accommodation may include reasonable accommodation to a land use and zoning law under a Homeowners Association Act, which is basically what this request is. It's coming to us under the request to change our zoning laws because our zoning doesn't allow horses in residential communities. When providing information, healthcare professionals should use personal knowledge of the patient or the client, the knowledge used to diagnose, advise, counsel, treat, or provide healthcare or other disability-related services to the patient or client. We received nothing that tells us what the horse is going to do to help alleviate any of these unseen disabilities. The disability-related information, as best practice, it is recommended that the individual seeking reasonable accommodation for support animals as healthcare professionals provide information related to the following: whether the patient has a physical or mental impairment, whether the patient's impairment substantially limit at least one major life activity or major bodily function, and whether the patient needs the animals because it does work, provides assistance, or performs at least one task that benefits the patient because of his or her disability, or because it provides therapeutic emotional support to alleviate a symptom or effect of the disability of the patient or client, and not merely as a pet. If the animal is not a dog, cat, small bird, rabbit, hamster, gerbil, or other rodent, fish, turtle, or other small domesticated animal that is traditionally kept in the home for pleasure rather than for commercial purposes, it may be helpful for the patient to ask the healthcare professionals to provide the following additional information: the date of the last consultation, a unique circumstance justifying the patient's need for the particular animal, and whether the healthcare professional has reliable information about this specific animal, or whether they specifically recommend this type of animal. It also recommends that the healthcare professional sign and date any document provided and provide contact information and any professional licensing information. And then it goes on to a couple of other definitions of what disability is and what impairment is. So those are the main sections of
I wouldn't want that letter.
Excuse me.
Sir, if you don't mind.
it's already a public document. I won't put it up at your request, but it is already a public document. The term major life activity means those activities that are of central importance to daily life, such as seeing, hearing, walking, breathing, performing manual tasks, caring for oneself, learning, or speaking. So, we haven't seen any evidence of that. Typically, these types of emotional support animals are supposed to provide some level of service to the patient or the client. These are not the Paris Hilton needs a little dog to get on an airplane. That's a different scenario than what we're asking for here. Again, I already read this definition of what a reasonable accommodation is. It has to deal with the use of a dwelling, and so far, we don't see that the horse provides any benefit to the use of the dwelling. At the Board of Planning and Appeals meeting, Mr. Simpson gave a description of how to be able to use the dwelling and ask for a reasonable accommodation may be that you need to put a ramp that extends into a setback area in order for a person to gain access to a house. That could be a reasonable accommodation. This is just the verbatim minutes of the meeting, where I've highlighted sections of Mrs. Gamash's information that she provided to the board, where she states that she disagrees with Dr. Nipper's diagnosis, that it was not brought on by COVID-19, that she's had this condition since she was a premature baby when she was born. They've had the horse for 15 years. It wasn't until recently that they decided to bring it back, and she made mention to financial conditions and the disagreements that they had with the stable owners. Again, she mentions that the anxiousness is something that she was born with. She doesn't like to go for the 30-minute car ride to get to Port Orange, where the horse was originally stabled. They've had the horse since 2007. It's 1,350 pounds. And she says, again, that she means anything could happen because they're huge animals. So that raises the concern for the safety. So that pretty much sums up everything that I had to put in there. The other information deals with the side effects of having a horse on a residential property. As of now, Waste Pro is not picking up the horse manure. I've seen photographs that were delivered to me probably by a neighbor where the horse manure is contained in large black bags that are sitting in the backyard, and they're fermenting, giving off odor, possibly ammonia and other toxic odors that are being smelled by the immediate neighbors. So there's information in here about how to deal with ammonia fumes in horse stalls and manure and pasture management, which I don't think is happening on the property. So with that, I'll answer any questions I possibly can, or if you want to open it up.
Yeah, we're going to go with commission questions right now. So if there are any commissioner questions for staff, raise your hand. I have one. Mr. Forte, let's start at the beginning here of why would we have an ordinance not allowing, and maybe this is better for Mr. Walker, so listen up, or our attorney. Why would we not allow horses in a residential area that is very closely confined, that is very close to neighbors? I don't know if that would be appropriate for you.
It's probably a good question for Brian to answer, but you have different zoning categories, and in a residential community is for that purpose, for residents. You have agricultural and farmlands, which livestock and those types of animals, whether it's horses, cows, pigs, goats, etc., they don't belong in residential communities. Yeah. So we have zoning categories, no different that you wouldn't allow an industrial use in between two residential properties per se, but we have specific zonings that allow for farm animals. Unfortunately, within the city limits of Holly Hill, we don't have any designated agricultural properties.
That's what I was going to ask, Mr. Walker. What property zoning would allow a horse to be on property here in Holly Hill? Would that only be agricultural
Within
zoning?
Holly Hill, it would be, if we had something that was zoned as agricultural. We do have a conservation type zoning. That's the only one that we have that would provide the type of open space necessary to accommodate farm animals. But this city does not have sites that are specifically zoned for agricultural and farm animals.
And I understand they're asking for an accommodation to our zoning, a special accommodation, but what is the residential zoning of this particular property?
This particular property, I believe, is R2.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have for you now. Are there any further questions?
Not for
Okay, I have further comments, but I'm going to hold them until we hear from the audience. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow the audience members to come up and speak. You will have 5 minutes to speak, and what I will ask you is to direct all of your comments to this commission. Do not address the applicant, and you could talk about the applicant, but address us, please. And you will have 5 minutes to state anything that you would like to say to this commission, and then we will move on. So with that, we will open this up for public participation. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Just state your name and address for the record.
My
And
name
you
is
have 5
Roger
minutes.
St. Ange, 1705 Anniston Ave. I'd like to first touch on the last committee meeting. Y'all voted no. They all voted no. She shot herself in the foot saying it wasn't emotional, it was physical. Why didn't this end there? I hope after tonight, everybody votes no and gives this young man 7 days to get that horse out of here. When Dale first came to me and talked to me about a horse coming into town, I said, okay, I'll entertain the conversation. He said he had 3 people in his pocket. You as a neighbor, Vice Mayor Penny and Mr. Dano. Said he knew you two for 30 years. He said he only needed 3 of 5 of the votes. I hope he doesn't have them, because this is not good for Holly Hill at all. So I turned in those 4 packets. It touched bases on management, horse manure, ammonia. Well, that horse urine, where's that going to go? It goes in the ground, right into water management. Not good. Not good at all. Dale has a corral up. It's got a plastic fiberglass fence. Leaves the door open wide. Let airflow. There's no airflow when that door is closed. I've got pictures on my phone. He stated the gate is closed to the corral. I have his wife in the back of the corral, back turned, horse at the gate. Gate's open that much. The outside gate is open. I've got pictures. You don't have to take my word for it. Pictures 1,000 words. $1,000. Whatever it is. The stockpiling of the manure, the bags, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. He's not managing them. He's not doing nothing. He's taking one bag now because Waste Pro's not picking it up with their crane. He's taking one bag, putting out with his trash. So one bag goes every Tuesday, every Thursday. Still going to Waste Management, just one bag at a time now. Okay. It's over 9 tons of horse crap. I think we did the number, it was like 13. Smells horrible. I had a rat in my grill. Never had a rat in my property, ever, since I owned it. Horse came to town, so did the rat. My bedroom window is right there. It's all I smell. The other day I let my little girl out, little 2-year-old boxer, cutest thing. As soon as I opened the door, I got smacked in the face. Horse urine and manure, first thing in the morning. It was better than coffee. Not really. He states she has a problem. He's afraid to put it up on there. It's public record. He's scared. I've talked to neighbors. They've bitched, moaned, and whined for 15, 20 years they live there. Outside, inside, I don't see where the horses help at all. Because you know what? I've got a video of his wife damaging my property from their side. My fence. He had a structure he had to take down. She's literally throwing it up against my fence. Horse is behind her. Her soothing animal. No, it's not working. Not working at all. Respiratory. She talked about respiratory, right? Dust. Ammonia. Horse manure. Come on. She don't even have an oxygen tank. She's out there running around. scrambling. I don't see anything, no issues. I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty smart. I had bullet points, but, like normal, I go off task. It's a dangerous situation. I smell propane, like it's something that smells like propane, and there's nothing going on except Dale's manure. It's a hazmat situation. What's going to happen? It's dry. Hurricane season's coming. What's going to happen? It's just going to get worse. He gets the fireworks spark coming there, poof, gone. What's he going to do about the horse? He's got grandkids. He ran in the crowd, snatched up one of his grandkids because the door was open and his wife had the grandkid in there. Why is he scared? Why are you scared? I don't know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll vote right.
Thank you, sir. And we will open this up, continue to open this up to public comment. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this? Yes, sir, Mr. Blaze. State your name and address for the record.
Blaze, Commissioner, retired law enforcement officer, and also a Holly Hill Ranger. Gentlemen, I live at 710 Magnolia. My area in 1964, when I was overseas defending rights, your rights, that section of Holly Hill was annexed, agricultural. The horses that were there, the animals, they were grandfathered in. For the sake of this argument, hey, I bless this horse, he's been grandfathered in and he's been lost all these years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blaze. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the commission tonight on this item? Yes, sir. Just name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Yes, hi, my name is Neil, good evening, everybody. My name is Neil Gushu. I live at 1701 Anniston Avenue, and of course, I've spoken to you before. Obviously, he's not proven his point, what their argument is. My issue now, and it's an issue after listening to him, is that he had total disregard to his neighbors, just like he had total disregard for the city by bringing the horse in. I don't believe he came and talked to you people first about bringing a horse into his area. Okay, he brought it in at nighttime on a rainy night, and I think it was a weekend. The thing is, though, he stated that he talked, when I finally got to talk to him, he stated that he talked to all the neighbors, and all the neighbors are in agreement with him, and it's not a problem. Well, it seems to think he didn't ask any of the neighbors if they had any health conditions. He's worried about his wife's health condition and everything that way, but he's not least bit concerned about his neighbors. Now, I have a problem with the horse. I'm starting to get allergies now. My dog has allergies. My wife's allergies are exacerbated. And this gentleman just doesn't abide by any rules. He does not care about anyone else's well-being. He's only concerned about himself. As you will also know by the fact that he has a number of ordinances that he's broken by building. In fact, everything he's built in his backyard since he's lived there was not permitted, from what I understand. Now, for the time that I've been there now, and I had one interaction with him when he was building one of his fences, he asked me if I wanted to have the fence extended into my yard, and I thought, no, I don't think so. And I said, what about permits? He said, oh, it's Holly Hill, you don't need permits. So I'm just saying, this gentleman has a total disregard, not only for the law, but actually he has no regard for his neighbors. He's never came to me about anything. He avoids me. When my wife goes to work earlier in the morning, he comes and talks to her and says he can't deal with me, so he's going to tell her everything. So I have to get it filtered, in other words, through a third party. I'm just upset about the fact that we've been putting up with this now since March 12th. And I live on the south side of Mr. Gamache. The smells, as the previous gentleman has said, are atrocious. We've got more flies, more bugs. In fact, snakes are migrating from my yard and are going into his yard. I'm sorry I didn't put it on camera, because I do believe they're probably feeding on the vermin, the mice and rats and whatever else are over there now. And it's just getting out of hand. And one of the things I want to say to the city as a group is that I hope that if you vote what I hope to be the proper thing, is that you don't give this gentleman another 90 days so that this horse is going to stay there through the hot months of this summer, and we have to put up with that much more smell and dust and everything else. And another reason why it does smell so bad is he's using hay as the absorbent. And from what I read about horses and everything, hay is one of the not-so-great absorbents as far as taking in horse urine. And when you mix the hay with the urine, with the feces from the horse, it's very combustible. And that, with the hot season coming along, like the previous gentleman has stated, is that it's very possible it could cause a fire or some type of problem. Initially, and I have to say this, I felt empathetic towards the man, knowing, especially after listening to his wife with her delivery and listening to them scream at each other in their front yard, in their backyard. And then he tells me the one day, oh, we're just normal people having a personal conversation. And I suggested that he takes a screaming personal conversation inside. And he's just flippant about it, you know, he doesn't care. It's just his world, and no one else exists in it. Again, the only thing I can emphasize is that please don't let this horse stay there any longer. I mean, this has really become tough on me. As a veteran and as has documented health issues, which I don't have to present, I'm 90% disabled. If he would have known, I would have told him. I mean, if he would have asked, I would have told him. But apparently, he wasn't interested. So, just to say that. And thank you for hearing us, and please do the right thing. I appreciate that. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Shu. Yes, ma'am.
I just have one question. I have 20 seconds left on the clock. Can I use it?
No, sir.
My question is actually just for you.
No, sir. No, sir. We can't. I'm sorry.
Taking my time?
I'm sorry. No. Yeah, she can ask it
Yeah.
for you. Yes. Oh, do you want to go now? There you go.
Hi.
Yes,
My
ma'am.
name is Linda Gushu, 1701 Anniston Avenue. And as that older gentleman stated, that, yes, that, you know, perhaps horses were here at a time, but I think all of the United States basically at that time probably had horses, cows, wild pigs running around, according to a lot of books that I've read. But, you know, I would like to enjoy my backyard too, and I can't do that. I have to wear a mask now. I've had allergies, and now I have an emergency inhaler, which is my new best friend. They have a horse. I have an emergency inhaler. And, you know, and when she is in her backyard, I mean, I would love to know, why does she spend it in a rocking chair in a tent? Is it because of the bugs? Or, you know, why? Why does she have to be in a tent? Okay, and that horse, I mean, a little exercise, hadn't left the yard, what, 3 months now? That's a long time, that horse just pacing back and forth. It's not healthy. And, I mean,
It's okay.
that's,
Take your time.
yeah, that, I mean, that's, this is just wrong, and that horse needs to go. It should have never come. It should have been removed immediately. But anyway, so she has her horse. I have an emergency inhaler. So she's happy. We are not. And I think that it should be respectful for everybody's feelings, because it's stressing me out. I look forward to going to work and getting away from my house just so I can breathe without having to wear a mask and using an inhaler. So it's just not fair to everybody else. And as far as in our backyard, we've been feeding the birds since every dwelling I've ever lived in. We've always fed the birds, and well, now there's something. I'm not going to say it's a rat, but there's something climbing up there and destroying the bird feeders and you can see claw marks. I don't know what the heck it is, but nothing I've ever seen before. And as my husband said, he did call me when the horse first came. To clarify, he did call me a couple of times and text, and I did tell him, I said, I just want this to go away. He said he understood, and I didn't hear from him again after that. And just to clarify that. But Yeah, it needs to go now. Just, thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gishu. All right, who wants to go next? Yes, ma'am. And
My
just,
name is Alice, and I live at 1705 Aniston Avenue as well. I also own a horse, but I stable it in DeLeon Springs. And, you know, I travel every day, and the times that I cannot go, I pay someone to feed and care for my horse. So as much as I would love for the horse to be in my backyard, I think common sense kind of has to kick in. You know, you can't just have something like that in the backyard. But anyway, I believe that this horse is like a thoroughbred. Thoroughbreds were bred to be racers, and they're hot-blooded, they're high energy, and I don't think it's fair for this horse to be in this backyard. Yeah, granted, there's show horses that are put in stalls all day long and things like that, but these are horses that are let out into a pasture or a paddock periodically to run and jump and get some of the things out of their bodies, you know. And with that in mind, exercise is very important to a horse. It circulates their blood, and also the laminate fluids. When a horse is standing all day long, the fluids literally go to their legs, and they swell up. The hoofs is made that when the horse walks, this fluid will pump back up through the body. Well, if this horse is constantly standing in the way, it can't do that. Therefore, the bone eventually, if it gets bad enough, that bone could go through the hoof of this horse, and that is very painful for a horse, and it's just not right. Now, as for the manure is made of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and just a few more. So I'd like to touch base with nitrogen is a colorless, odorless gas that makes fertilizer and explosives. Nitrogen can move into the soil and eventually into the groundwater and has been linked to cancer if consumed. Now granted, this is the 1,350-pound horse per her. That means this horse will produce 14 pounds of nitrogen per year. The phosphorus enters into our water surfaces and stimulates the growth of algae, aquatic plants, and vegetation. 1 pound of phosphorus can produce 500 pounds of aquatic plants. When these plants decay into our retention ponds, it takes away the air, the oxygen that's in that water, and it kills everything. The water gets stagnant. We pay a lot of money on our taxes to keep these retention ponds clean. So therefore, whenever, you know, we live in a flat zone, a water, you know, where it's a flood zone. So the water's naturally going to drain off and it's going to go right into those retention ponds. So I personally, it's bad enough that we have to smell manure and the urine. Now we're going to be smelling the stagnant water eventually. Now, I don't know how long it would take. I'm not a chemist or anything, but it's just something that I read up on and I felt that it needed to be noted. Just kind of as a conclusion, manure management is very important for the health of the horse as well as the environment. If allowed to accumulate, it can attract flies, harbor parasites, and pathogens, and generate offensive odors, as we all know. When not managed properly, horse manure, which is feces and urine, can pollute the environment mainly as a ground or surface water pollution by seeping into the ground and runoffs. Depending on the site, the water may flow to surfaces and or groundwater, which could significantly negatively impact our water quality and human health. And I'd like to leave you with this one thought. In my opinion, putting this horse in this small area is equivalent to locking you up in your bathroom. And I don't think that any of us wants to live in our bathroom for the rest of our lives. And this horse, the thoroughbred, which is what I think this is, the life expectancy on this horse is anywhere between 25 and 28 years old. So at least for another 10 years, I really would prefer that this horse not be in my backyard. So, thank you for your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
And was there a question too, before you?
Sorry.
No worries.
With this stockpile being put up, and it's obviously they're not doing anything about it as far as I know of. Maybe they've contacted somebody for fertilizer or whatever. But what is the city planning to do as it continues to stockpile and we continue to smell the stench?
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, we will continue on with public comment. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the commission on this item tonight? Going once, going twice. All right, no one else wishes to speak. this evening, so I'm going to end public comment. Vice Mayor, did you have something to add?
Just when you're ready to entertain a motion, I'd like to ask permission to make a motion, and if that motion is approved, make an immediate second motion after that.
Okay. I was going to go to our attorney first, but if you would like to make that motion, I'll open the floor for the motion, and we can...
See if you had any rebuttal.
Rebuttal?
The applicant?
Before you make your motion, just hold on. Is there any, did you want to speak again, Mr. Gamache?
A lot of things I wouldn't want to comment on, just because that's not my way. We purchased a ton of industrial strength bags. We were putting it out to the road, not just the manure, but the hay that accumulated as well, for 3 weeks. And I don't mean just a couple bags. It was 10 or 15, 20 bags at a time per week for that. And then we were told that we couldn't do that anymore. So that's when I'm going to start taking out to the dump, but I don't want to go out to the dump 10 times. So we're in the process of that now.
Mayor, are we allowed to ask questions now?
Sure. Let him finish
Okay.
first.
I forgot. Most of the things, if you had a herd of horses, groundwater, all that kind of stuff, okay. Again, and I did want to ask about that. We were told that we can't put the stuff out to the road anymore for the Wednesday pickup. And I called the city, I talked to whoever the code enforcement guy is. Kyle, is it?
Kyle.
And I talked to Waste Management, I talked to Solid Waste at the city, and I asked literally 4 or 5 phone calls. I called Waste Pro, and I said, what is the deal with that? And I said, and I'm not complaining because I wasn't, if that's your policy, that's your policy. But I said, what is the policy for the dog park? Is the dog park allowed to put feces in the garbage cans? Do they have a special exemption? Is there something that they have gone through a process? Because obviously for the 20 years that dog park's been there, the only thing in their tubs is feces. So I didn't get an answer for that. It would have been out at the road every Wednesday, and there wouldn't be anything, any buildup. But that's why it has stopped, in that I have to take it all to the dump. So that's that. But again, a lot of the stuff I don't want to talk about.
Commissioner Curry has a question, I think, for you possibly.
Okay, we're on the subject of the manure and urine and all that stuff. And first, I'd like to say there's a bit of a difference between dog feces and horse feces as far as the amount.
20 years.
Quite a big difference. And people every day, if they're responsible and clean up after their pets, which are dogs, cats, what have you, they would put it through the normal disposal of their garbage. Our city is not equipped, Waste Pro is not equipped to take care of horse manure because they're not allowed in our city. I know that your wife made mention of horses being allowed on Flemish. Sir, that was so many years ago, and we do not grandfather things like that anymore, Gillis. This commission doesn't work that way anymore.
I was speaking of the dog park, ma'am. I wasn't talking
Okay.
about the individual people with their dogs.
Well, I'm just explaining, everybody has dogs.
Sure.
Everybody has cats.
Sure.
We dispose of it in a normal way,
Okay? I
which
understand
can't
that.
be done for horses.
I'm not-
And you can't convince me it can
I'm not
be.
disputing
So I'd like to know, what is your plan now that you can't get rid of that manure or hay through our service that we provide? How are you going to dispose of that?
I think I just stated twice that I said that I was going to start taking it out to the.
Okay, and how often are you going to do that?
Every week or couple weeks, probably.
And so you're going to let all that manure and hay and everything pile up for a week or two?
That isn't piled up, ma'am. It's in big.
Okay, you're going to allow
industrial
it to pile up in garbage bags, industrial, not industrial, I really don't care. But you're going to let it pile up for a week or two.
Okay,
And then remove it.
okay.
I'm asking you.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am,
not
I said
making
that.
a statement, sir.
Okay, ma'am, I
I'm
already
asking
said
you,
that.
is that
I
your
already said
intent?
that, though.
Is that your intent?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And
there's also.
what, no, wait a minute.
Okay.
What major life activity does this horse perform for your wife being outside? What major life activity can you tell me that this horse does for her?
Living life.
Okay, that's not a major life activity, sir.
Okay.
As stated in the documents we've seen, I need to know a major life activity that this horse performs, besides being a cute big horse. And I have concerns over the safety because of the size of the animal. And it's a wild animal. I don't care if you consider it a pet, what you consider it. It's a wild animal, sir.
There's double fence.
There's no getting around it being a wild animal. And being as large as it is,
Two fences.
okay, how tall is your fence, sir?
Well, the first one is a corral fence.
Which is
5
how
and a
tall,
half
sir, I don't do horses.
5.5 foot.
Okay.
And the outside fence is 6 foot.
Okay, are you going to tell me that at no time a horse as large as he is, or she, I don't know what it is, but as large as that horse is, those fences can secure that horse, as powerful as it is?
You mean to go through them?
Yeah.
That could be anything, ma'am. That could be someone walking their dog down the street and they're on a leash.
Well, and if they have a dangerous animals, we have ordinances to handle that too.
I understand that, but it doesn't have to be a dangerous
Okay,
animal.
and more importantly for me, where is my letter, my proof from a healthcare professional that has seen your wife, treated your wife, well, diagnosed your wife, treated your wife, and come up with the plan for the horse? Where's my documentation? That letter that you gave me is not documentation, sir. That simply makes a couple statements, and it does not fulfill what I read before me in requirements.
Okay.
So where is the letter? Do you have it? And we just weren't provided with it? Because
That
Mr.
is the
Forte
letter.
gave you a list of things that you needed to provide. Did you not provide that?
That letter was what we provided.
Okay, but you didn't provide what we really need. Is that what you're telling me?
Everything I saw in the law said that it could
Okay,
be
no.
a healthcare professional.
Well, our city manager, who does what we direct him to do, what he requested from you, did you provide that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'll just be another second, Mayor. I just want to make sure I covered everything. And you are aware that horses are wild animals and not allowed by city code, but you just brought it in here willy-nilly in the middle of the night. It's just
Wasn't-
good old Holly Hill. It's not good old Holly Hill anymore, sir. This commission works differently now.
Okay.
We are not
Is there
good
any
old Holly
reason why
Hill.
you're being this
You
way
don't
towards
have
me, ma'am?
commissioners in your back
Is there
pocket.
any way you're being this way towards me, though? Any reason?
Because
for that?
I'm offended by what you said. We are not good old Holly Hill.
I didn't say anything about good old Holly.
We're not
Hill.
that anymore.
Let's just pause here for 1 second. Excuse me, sorry, Mr. Gamache. And I
I'm
feel-
sorry, Mayor.
No.
I will reel myself in. I'm
I
getting
feel,
very passionate
I
right
feel your
now.
passion, and in the workshop
know me.
earlier, I got just as passionate about a
You know
different
me, I
issue.
get passionate, so.
I know you do.
I'll reel it in.
I'm just gonna say, let's reel it
I
in.
will
and-
reel it in.
Yes, yes, ma'am. What's that?
So,
I did.
I think I've basically asked all the questions I have. and gotten the answers that I
Okay.
expected.
Thank you, Commissioner Curry. Vice Mayor?
I'd just like to make a statement that I don't believe I've ever seen, met, or spoken to Mr. Gamache until this evening. So any inference that I'm in his back pocket is bizarre.
It's not true.
I don't know
by the
where
way.
that came from.
It's not true, but.
What's not true, that I've met you?
No. That's not true as well. You're mistaken, but that I said I had you in my back pocket is not
Okay,
true.
I think, I don't have any questions for you, sir. You can sit down.
No,
I don't have any questions for you, sir. I don't have any questions for you, sir. Could you please sit down?
He's saying he's done with any questions. Are there no further questions? All right.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
All I want to say is, I don't believe that this was the way the Gamaches intended it, but I also believe that sometimes there's different, like, I've known the Gamaches 30 years, and that's probably where the misunderstanding came in. But I'm not going to take offense that I'm in his back pocket, because I don't think they ever said that or intended that, and I hope hope that they never did. But I would take offense to that, but that doesn't change the whole, I'm not exactly sure why we took this long to decide on something that's kind of not even valid. What are we sitting here wasting all the time for? It's a
That's a
horse
good question.
in the backyard that really doesn't belong in the backyard of a residential neighborhood.
This is a quasi judicial hearing. We have to make sure that we let all the evidence come out.
Maybe let me give you all some guidance here and answer some of these questions. Why did the process take so long? Many years ago, these reasonable accommodation requests come up, typically not this way. How they've come up in Holly Hill in the past is recovering addicts or alcoholics who are viewed as disabled under the ADA. These recovery homes will buy a single-family home, relocate and go to move a bunch of recovering addicts into a single-family home, and they will violate our definition of family. We have only so many unrelated people can live together to meet the definition of family for single-family home. And that's not just us, that's other jurisdictions have the same thing. And so they ask for relief from those regulations, and they sue, and they typically prevail on that issue to allow these type of recovery homes in jurisdictions. And we had one in Holly Hill. So when we had the first one come up, I thought it'd be a good idea to create a review process, that we would evaluate an accommodation request from our regulations under the ADA, because we have to do it. We have to try to evaluate, we have to address an accommodation request. So we created this process in our code. And the process provides for it to go to the planning board, for a recommendation to answer that one person's questions. Why is it here? Why wasn't it done there? That was just an advisory board to the city commission. The city commission makes the final decision. So that just takes time, and you're dealing with federal constitutional rights. So you just don't want to go marching right through them real quick. Let's make sure we give them an opportunity to address their issues. Typically what the courts look for, there's certain things that have to be established to be entitled to an accommodation. First one is the person has to have a handicap or disability. We've heard discussions about that. I would say, there's arguments on that issue. I will say the courts interpret it broadly to say somebody does fall under a disability or handicap, but it's clearly at minimum, it is debatable in this situation. But let's just assume for the sake of discussion that the property owner does have a disability or handicap, just for the sake of discussion. The second thing that they look for is that typically it's a landlord or property owner, but it can be a governmental entity, is aware of the condition. Let's say we are aware of it. Let's go to let's get past that one. The third one is they are asking for an accommodation, which is relief from our rules, that helps alleviate a disability which prevents them from being able to use their house. Understand, this reasonable accommodation is coming under the Fair Housing Act. So to me, the paramount question is, if we are assuming there's a disability here, how does that disability prevent her from using her house? I've heard nothing about that. That's a very key question to me. Because it's not that it helps her. It's not that it makes her feel better. You know, I'm sure any disabled person would love to have their doctor's office right next door. That would be a huge accommodation, make them feel a lot better. They just don't have to drive anywhere. They just go next door and be treated. We don't have to allow a doctor's office in every residential area. You know, how is it that this accommodation helps you enjoy your house in a way everybody else gets to enjoy their house, but this disability that you have prevents it? And that's the example I gave that Joe talked about. If you had to have wheelchair access to get into your house, and the only way you could build a wheelchair ramp is to project something into our setback, it may be a reasonable accommodation to allow that to go into the setback, because there's no other way this person can get in the house. And without being able to access the house, they cannot enjoy their house like a non-handicapped person can. So I have not seen any evidence that this disability, we're assuming there's a disability there, prevents her from enjoying the house. Nor have I heard any evidence of how the horse alleviates that disability to allow her to enjoy the house. That's missing. The next question is the accommodation reasonable? It has to be a reasonable accommodation, not any accommodation, a reasonable accommodation. That's a judgment call if we get to that point, but my question to y'all would be, if this is reasonable, what's not? Is it the elephant? Is it the tiger? I mean, at what point are we going to draw a line and say, no, this isn't reasonable anymore? There's got to be a point. If this is deemed reasonable, how are we going to decide what is unreasonable if we allow this as reasonable? And then the last thing I show is that we denied the request. So the key things to me are, how does the disability we're going to assume she has, how does that prevent her from using the house? How does the horse alleviate that disability, allow her to use the house? And then, okay, is this a reasonable request? And I believe city manager brought up, the reasonableness also has to look into what other options have you looked at? Is this the only accommodation? The only time I see a horse being used as an accommodation under all the cases I read, miniature horses. Not full-size horses. I just see miniature horses. Then we go to the next step is, even if the accommodation alleviates the disability, allows them to use the house, and even if the accommodation is viewed reasonable, under Florida law, a reasonable accommodation can be denied if there is a direct threat of bodily injury or property damage. So even if you had a reasonable accommodation that met all the requirements, the law still allows you to say, no, under these circumstances, we think there is a risk to bodily injury or property damage. And you've heard a lot of testimony about that. I personally don't think you've heard any evidence, from a legal standpoint. You're trying to say, okay, did you present your case? Did they present their case that they met all the elements? There is no evidence of how the disability prevents her from using the house. I've not heard, if I'm wrong, correct me, but I have not heard one piece of evidence about that, and I have not heard how the horse alleviates that disability that allows her to utilize the house in a way that a non-handicapped person would. To me, that's kind of the key elements to what's missing here. It's not enough just to say, I have a disability and this animal makes me feel better, helps me deal with my disability. That's not enough. That does not get you to where you need to be. It's a housing issue. So that disability has to be tied back to housing, the inability to use the housing like a non-handicapped person would, and how does that animal allow you to alleviate your disability so you can use the house like someone else can. And that's why you'll sometimes see service animals. Some of the things that, some of the cases I've read through, one of them was somebody wanted the condo to adopt somebody had asthma. They wanted the condo to adopt no smoking policy. They allowed smokers. And the court said, that the request does not qualify as a reasonable accommodation to the Condos Association policy of allowing smoking within the meaning of the Fair Housing Act. barring housing discrimination against handicapped people, since owner requested fundamental change in association smoking policy, not moderate adjustments to the policy, and smoking ban would have it intrude on rights of third parties. So that, there's a limit to where you go on these things. There's another one that says, request for zoning variance to allow residential treatment center to operate within public motel was not reasonable accommodation required by Fair Housing Act, given that under city code, no one, disabled or otherwise, was generally allowed to stay in a motel for more than 29 days or to reside in a commercial zone. Different issue, but conceptually you say, okay, nobody's allowed to have a horse. So just like this one, nobody's allowed to live in the hotel more than 29 days. So is that really a reasonable accommodation? You're asking to do something that no one else is allowed to do. So my legal advice is look at those elements. Those are the burden of proof that they have. They got to meet each one of those elements. Staff, in my opinion, there's two of those elements that I've talked about. They don't meet. No evidence presented. And it's not enough just to say we have a disability and this particular animal helps us deal with that disability. All that may be very well true, but that's not enough to meet the requirements of a reasonable accommodation in the Fair Housing Act, which is what they've requested.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson, for that explanation. And with that, I will open the floor for a motion.
And I would like to
Unless you have a question.
No, I want to make a motion, but if that motion passes, I'd like to make a second motion.
Yes. Granted.
So, based on tonight's discussion, I find that no substantial competent evidence has been presented tonight to show that the applicant meets the definition for a reasonable accommodation to be granted, and I make a motion to deny.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion from the Vice Mayor to deny the request for a reasonable accommodation. We have a second from Commissioner Curry, and now we'll go to discussion. The maker of the motion, you have the floor. Seconder of the
I
motion.
don't have anything else, sir.
Okay. And I will say that that if that statement was true, that was made, was said earlier about having anyone in your pocket, I've never been in anybody's pocket ever, and I think you would know that specifically, and my vote tonight will show that as well. And for that to ever be said by anyone, if that was said, completely wrong. And as you heard from the other commissioners here tonight, that is wrong as well. And so I just wanted to make that statement. I had a lot prepared that Mr. Simpson, you kind of stole the thunder on.
Sorry.
The major thing here is that this is not reasonable. It's not reasonable in any sense, form, or fashion. And so for that main reason, along with all the other ones stated by our city attorney, I'm going to have to vote no here tonight as well. So is there any further discussion before we vote? All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of denying the request for a reasonable accommodation, vote by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, vote no. The motion carries unanimously to deny, and the Vice Mayor has requested the floor once more for an additional motion.
I'd like to make a motion that the horse must be removed, the manure and hay be removed, the stable cleaned and disinfected by June 1st, 2022 at 12:01 a.m. or go directly to the special master.
And I'll second that motion as well.
Okay.
Now, I need clarification from our attorney.
Yeah.
Does it have to say, or go directly to special master? Because he's already been noticed to go to special master.
He's been noticed to go to special master. Code enforcement is an administrative function. No part of code enforcement comes before the city commission other than code reduction fines.
So should I restate my motion and leave that off?
You want my personal opinion?
Yeah.
Withdraw your motion and let staff handle it. And they know to do it expeditiously, and they will get this, they've cited him.
No,
He will
I
have
don't
to
like
go to
that.
the special magistrature.
No, but
I'm not comfortable with that.
I want a deadline.
Let me throw in some more information that we found out today. In anticipation that this would be voted down tonight, we had Kyle do a little bit of research, and we contacted the county animal control, the health department, and we found that if the commission voted no on the reasonable accommodation request, the city can file an administrative warrant or a seizure warrant through the clerk of the court's office as soon as tomorrow. And in doing that, if we get a court order, we can seize the animal. So I think we should give Mr. Gamache reasonable time. I think Mr. Gamache should tell us what the reasonable time frame is, not that it's 90 days, but 72 hours, this Friday, next Monday. Well, it came here in a day. I don't see why it can't leave in a day, but I think we should be given a reasonable time frame. And if not, then the city will take the administrative action of seeking an administrative warrant to seize the animal.
And if we take possession of the animal, I'm assuming that we have to house the animal and pay for the expense, and then we will be able to recoup that expense from the applicant.
It'll be issued as a lien against the property.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. What about the structure that was,
Any structures that were put up in violation without a permit will be, have already, if not, they were already.
oh, okay,
For the special master, so they're already in the process.
okay.
Commissioner Daniel?
Mr. Forte, I mean, removing the animal seems like it'd be done quickly. I don't think that'd be the issue. The rest of that stuff, it might not be a day. I mean, you know, the idea is to get this,
Shouldn't be more than a week.
that's fine. I mean, I can live with, you know,
June 1st to 7 days from today.
I got you.
I'm happy with June 1st.
And I'm not saying anything.
Because that gives a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, and
So-
honestly, they knew what the recommendation of the planning board was. They knew this was a possibility. It wouldn't be unreasonable to make arrangements in the event the ruling came the way it did.
Following the Board of Planning Appeals meeting in anticipation of this meeting, I suspected that the commission would vote no, and I advised Mr. Gamache to prepare for a no and to make arrangements for the animal. So if that hasn't,
We need June
if that
1st
advice
then.
hasn't been heeded,
And it's, my recommendation is not due to the unreasonableness of anything. I'm just trying to recognize what our charter says. There's certain decisions you make and there's certain decisions he makes. And I'm trying to, and I think he knows what his job is to get this thing out here as soon as reasonably possible.
But I want to make sure it's done expeditiously. Not unreasonable time, but expeditiously.
And I think the city manager understands that.
So we don't need to put anything,
Unless the city manager wants you to, that's different. It's just not something that you typically do. That's, you know, and this obviously is not a
Right.
typical case. But typically what you're getting into is the administrative function of code enforcement.
well, I don't want to say, go to the special master. I want to say, by a certain date, everything needs to be cleaned up, and we have done that before. We've put dates certain on different
We've
items.
come into, this because we have ordinances that allow for you to declare something a public nuisance and then to tear it down. That's a,
But Mr. Simpson, the thing shouldn't even be there.
no, it's a
So,
code violation. It's like,
so
it's a
we
code
don't
violation.
have to give an extended amount of time. We can give a reasonable amount of time.
That's what our code says, yes.
Okay.
So with that, Mr. Gamache, can you please come forward? Because I know you wanted to say something. Maybe you're going to surprise us and say it'll be out by tomorrow.
First of all, in the law, it did say that you don't have to ask before.
no, you don't have to ask before.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, is this a time for debate, or is this just a
It's
time?
no
not
no
saying-
debate. Just
I'm
did you
not
have
debating.
something
When the horse will
I'm
be
not
gone.
debating.
to say about when it was being removed?
Okay. I'm leaving for a convention on Thursday for 3 days. Finding a place for a horse is not like getting a hotel room somewhere. And to tell you the truth, and I've lived in Holly Hill all my life, we're seriously thinking about, after what we've endured for this time, they say that they have endured. What we have endured is...
Mr. Mayor,
re-
we're sort of
Okay.
getting back into some
I'm
debate.
just saying that this is not, you talk about this is not the old Holly Hill. What's happened to us is not the old Holly Hill.
All right.
And
Mr. Gamache,
I'll leave
do
it
you-
at that. But time frame,
That's what we're
I
talking.
need a couple weeks to find a place for the horse. Now, I can give you my word of honor
No.
that I will get rid of all the manure and hay and keep it that way. And as I said, I have, for the most part. until they told me I couldn't do it anymore.
All right.
Mr. Simpson, is this the time would be appropriate for one of us to make a motion to give a time, date certain?
There's a motion on the floor. Thank you, Mr. Gabosh, that's all. So we still have a motion and a second on the floor. Is those motions still stand?
Well, I don't want to violate our charter. Our city
Right.
attorney's telling us,
Right.
I'm going to violate the charter by doing this.
Right.
So I withdraw my motion,
I'll withdraw my second.
but I believe a reasonable time frame is June 1st.
Are you
12:01.
making that a motion?
I don't know if
Let
I
me-
can make that.
Let
I
me
think you can
explain.
make that without the
Well,
special master.
Let me explain what I think Scott's saying and what I think my responsibility is tomorrow, a notice will be given to the Gamashes that the horse is in violation and needs to be removed, and we'll give him a week to remove it.
And if he
If
doesn't,
it's
then
not
give-
removed in the week, he'll be going to the special master hearing on June 23rd. I will request that the special master authorize the city to issue the warrant of seizure. And if it's not removed by then, I mean, that's the administrative process. I would think that following, the fact that I did send an email, that's a special master hearing. Well, I
Mr.
think it should be
Forte,
removed
For
in
7
72
days.
hours.
Why, if you said that,
72 hours.
if we didn't do anything right now, from what I understand, you could do
No matter what you do.
you could apply to remove the horse tomorrow.
I could order the horse to be removed tomorrow, and if it's not, it goes to the special master. Whether I give him to tomorrow, or I give him 2 weeks, or I give him 3 weeks.
So that's my understanding, is that none of us here have the authority to remove that horse without the special master making that ruling.
Correct.
What about the confiscation, though?
Except that we can file for a, hold on a second.
Because June 23rd's a month.
I would say give him
from now.
till June 1st, and if he doesn't do it, file for the confiscation.
No, we don't want the horse. It's an administrative warrant or a seizure warrant through the clerk of the court's office. Because it's not a criminal case, it's not a custody case, there's no statutory limit, so we can move to do this quickly.
So can we give you direction to give him 7 days to remove the horse, and if he doesn't, then you start the paperwork. And special master goes alongside of this other paperwork, and whichever one gets there first, the horse is gone.
yeah, do the paperwork to confiscate the horse if it's not cleaned up by the 1st.
Yeah, we could always call a special meeting for the special magistrate.
Well, that might be even
So we
better.
could call for it sooner.
I'm not familiar with that
We just pulled
administrative
this,
warrant.
yeah, we just pulled this afternoon
so-
from the county animal control.
And the only thing, and I just want to make sure that there's not a requirement that you exhaust your process before you go to that step. It may not be required, but I haven't researched that issue. But what I would, and I'm just generally dealing with how we deal with code enforcement, is what I'm looking at here, and how the process normally works, what our
Right.
charter says, things like that. What I would rather see is, the administration issue the notice of violation, and whatever that they deem to be a reasonable period of time to get the horse out, they get it out, knowing that we're going to have to still go through, issue them a citation, send it to the special master, call a special meeting of the special master, move it up, maybe just for that one particular case, just so we can accelerate the process. So, I mean, I get how there is an adverse environmental impact here. There's been testimony about that.
And I would like to get it done as soon as possible because of those reasons. And the 23rd is way too long.
Commissioner Daniel had a question.
I was gonna say, I think we all want it to, and unfortunately the Gamashes, but it is what it is, and we've done our job. The rest is up to administration and the code enforcement. We can't do anything more than we're empowered to do. So, I mean, if it's,
Well, I guess the city manager
72 hours or
knows.
7 days or.
I think Joe knows we want to expedite this as
he
soon
knows.
I mean,
as soon as legally
For those that
possible.
are kind of anxious to get this, I mean, we've had it for 3 months. If it takes 2 weeks or 72 hours, I mean,
Well,
we're doing what we're gonna do.
It
to
was
get
kind of brought
this
in
done.
a day. It should be able to leave pretty quickly.
All right,
Let's
so.
let the bosses handle their end.
So it looks to me that there will be the will of this commission to allow staff to cite this tomorrow and to expeditiously have this
I'm glad you
removed.
took that word.
Yeah, there we go.
Now spell it.
A little bit of Joe's rubbing off on me already. All right.
You're
Well,
too young for that.
with that, we're going to leave this with no motion made here. We're going to go ahead and continue on with our meeting. And so we're going to go to number 2 on our regular agenda. This is ordinance 2022-0-3052. And actually, right before we do that, we're going to take a 2-minute recess. I know there's a lot of people here that want to leave, and maybe some people that...
I mean, you don't want to hang out with us?
We're going to take just a quick
Isn't
little
this
2-minute
fun?
recess. Is there any objection to the recess? All right, we are now recessed.
Don't use the word shot.
All right. Val, are we reporting? What's that? What? Yeah.
I am gonna.
There we go. Yep,
Hey,
yep.
we saw it too.
All right. We're recording now? All right. All right. Hello, everybody. We're going to call this meeting back to order from our recess. This is the May 24, 2022 City Commission meeting. We are going to resume now our regular agenda, which we were on item number 2, ordinance 2022-0-3052 for first reading. Mr. Simpson.
Ordinance number 2022-0-3051 by title only for second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, approving the 8th Amendment to Marina Grand Residential-Based Mixed-Use Plan Unit Development, MPUD development.
Wait, we're on the wrong one.
Containers.
We're on containers.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
I was trying to get out of here.
Second reading, it's a first reading.
I'm like, this is first reading.
Oh, my bad. Trying to accelerate this.
Sit next to 47.
Yeah.
It's rubbing off.
Okay. Ordinance 20-22-0-3052. By title only for first reading. An ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, amending Chapter 78, General Provisions, Section 78-14, definitions to add definitions and amend Chapter 114, zoning, Article 3, supplementary district regulations, Division 4, building and structures, to add a new section titled shipping containers, renumbering existing sections as needed, and add definitions to Section 114-746, specific terms defined of the land development regulations, and providing for conflict, severability, applicability, and effective date.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simpson. Take it away.
All right, this may be sticky, but it's not going to be as bad as your previous item.
You don't think so?
You gonna put horses in these containers?
No, don't.
Don't get Penny fired up
Don't
again.
go there.
All right. Mr. Walker, the floor is yours.
We had a workshop on this, and I basically made the presentation at the workshop that I'm going to make before you now, but there have been some changes based on some feedback that was received after the workshop, but I'll let you know what those changes were, because it is slightly different than what we went over at the workshop. So currently, as you know, our city's land development code does not specifically address the issue of shipping containers. And when we talk about shipping containers, we're talking about those that we see on freight trains and ships and trucks for transporting goods. But the city has received requests to place these shipping containers on parcels in both business and residential zoning districts for permanent storage use. There haven't been a lot of complaints. We have gotten a few complaints about these types of containers, but the request to use them as permanent storage has definitely been increasing. So it's staff's opinion that the use of these shipping containers is a temporary one, or should be a temporary one, in which the container is delivered to a site, it's loaded with goods, it's put on some type of a truck or a train, it's transported to where it needs to go, unloaded, and then reloaded, but not used specifically to be permanently on a site. These types of containers, they're built well for their purpose, which is temporary in nature, but because they're industrial and designed for transport, they're not visually appealing when they're left on a site for permanent use. So it's staff's opinion that if left unregulated, these types of containers have the potential to severely detract from the visually appealing commercial and residential areas that the city is trying to realize. We've done things such as undergrounding of the utilities, planting of the palms along US 1. These are just some of the examples that have been part of our efforts to enhance the visual appeal of our city. And because the city's code does not provide any specific guidance on shipping containers or even really define what it is, staff worked to develop an ordinance that defines the term and addresses where they can and cannot be placed within the city. And in doing that, in working on this ordinance, staff reached out to other jurisdictions within Volusia County to get an idea of how they handled the issue. And in general, these types of containers are permitted only in industrial or heavy business type environments. The ordinance proposes to define a shipping container as a reusable container that is originally, specifically, or formally designed for use for or used in the packing, shipping, movement, or transportation of freight, articles, goods, or commodities, and is also designed for or capable of being mounted or moved on a rail car, truck, trailer, or loaded on a ship for intermodal freight transport. And then specifically, it says such a container is not a storage shed. And there is an exhibit that's up that shows specifically what types of containers are being addressed by this ordinance. The proposed ordinance restricts the use of shipping containers for permanent storage use to properties that are zoned CC1, which is our commercial corridor district, I1, which is our wholesale light industrial district, and I2, which is our heavy industrial zoning districts. Permanent use means more than 14 days within a calendar year, except when we're dealing with containers that are put on active construction sites. Those are able to remain for more than 14 days and not be considered permanent storage. The use of shipping containers for permanent storage would be prohibited in all of the other straight zoning districts. They would also be prohibited on any properties within our CRA that touch Ridgewood Avenue and LPGA Avenue. The commercial corridor district, our light industrial, and our heavy industrial districts were selected because it's felt that they're the most appropriate zoning districts with regard to their intent being more intensive in nature when compared to the other zoning districts. The proposed ordinance also requires that such containers be placed behind the front plane of a principal structure and not be located within the principal rear and side yard setbacks of the CC1 commercial corridor or I1 and I2 heavy industrial zoning districts, except that such containers that have a footprint of less than 250 square feet will be allowed to be placed within 8 feet of the rear property line. If visible from any rights-of-way, the shipping containers shall be completely screened with a decorative 8-foot block masonry stucco finished enclosure or a wall with a rounded top or decorative cap finished with stucco and painted to match the colors of the principal structure. The masonry enclosure or wall shall meet or exceed the minimum requirements per the Florida Building Code. One of the things that came up in the workshop discussion was the idea of skinning these containers. And so because of that, one of the things that has been added to the staff report since the presentation for the workshop is the following. In lieu of the aforementioned enclosure or wall, the container can be skinned, meaning to cover the outside of the container in such a way as to provide an aesthetically pleasing appearance or facade, and shall include a roof feature. Skinning does not mean painting. Shipping containers must also be mounted and anchored as required by the Florida Building Code. That's also changed in terms of the mounting, because during the workshop it was stated that they had to be mounted on a 4-inch slab. Now that specific requirement has gone away and been replaced with whatever the Florida Building Code requires, that's what they would have to meet. Also, there would not be allowed to be any plumbing or electrical or air conditioning within the shipping containers. This would ensure that they not be outfitted to be occupied. and the material to be stored in the shipping containers is subject to review by the chief building official, or the fire marshal, or the fire chief, to ensure that the materials stored within them are not hazardous. These regulations do not apply to city-approved planned developments wherein such containers are used to construct unique offices, homes, restaurants, etc., that meet all of the requirements of the Florida Building Code, as well as all other applicable city, state, and federal regulations. And there's an example of the types of developments that are not covered by this ordinance in an attachment entitled Container Development Examples. And if we can just have that brought up for a second. So these are examples of dwellings and restaurants, structures that are made out of shipping containers, and this type of development is not covered by the ordinance. So since the workshop, one of the things that came up was having these regulations apply to all shipping containers within the city without regard to how long they've been on a site or in the city. There was some talk of grandfathering initially and only having these regulations such as the skinning or having to be enclosed apply to certain ones, for example, those going forward, or ones that have just within the last year received a permit. But the idea in the workshop was that these regulations be extended to apply to all shipping containers in the city. So based on that, shipping containers that received a permit on any property prior to the adoption date of the ordinance shall have the ability to remain on the property, but must conform to the screening and skinning and roof feature requirements. Containers that do not have a permit, but that have been on a property continuously for at least 1 year prior to the adoption date of the ordinance, can remain on the property, but must apply for and receive a permit and conform to the screening or skinning and roof feature requirements. The city shall have the right to require that such containers be moved to a less visible area and meet setbacks. The presence of a container on the property for the year prior to the adoption date of the ordinance must be able to be verified. All other non-permitted containers must be able to meet all requirements, including zoning, and receive a permit or be removed from the property within 30 days of the adoption date of the ordinance. The time period of 30 days has been added since the workshop. That was not part of the workshop.
Say that one more time, that last sentence.
The requirement that if you have a container and let's say it can't meet any of the requirements and it doesn't have a permit, it would have to be removed within 30 days. That 30-day requirement has been added since the workshop. So based on this, staff recommends adoption of an ordinance amending Chapter 78, General Provisions, Sections 78-14, Definitions, to add definitions and amend Chapter 114, Zoning, Article 3, Supplementary District Regulations, Division 4, Buildings and Structures, to add a new section titled Shipping Containers and renumber existing sections as needed, and add definitions to Section 114-746, specific terms defined, of the Land Development Regulations. And that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. Brian, we appreciate it. Mr. Forte, did you have something?
Mayor, I had sent Val a number of pictures of the examples of what we're talking about with these containers. So we can pull them up here just so that you can visually see what we're seeing, what we're talking about versus what you might think we're talking about. There's only one picture in there that we can disregard, not because he's in the audience, but because they just took a picture of the wrong thing. So these are some of the containers that we have out there, and I can tell you the locations for the most part. This is a container that's a container that's located down at the Copper Bottom. That's a container that's on 2nd Street by Beach, by Riverside Drive. This one is at Maple Leaf Gardens, 1202 Ridgewood. That's another one that's over by 1202 Ridgewood. This one is on the rear of that property, but it's on State Avenue facing west. This is the one that everybody knows is over at Heavenly Cheesecake, except she replaced the doors with 2 residential doors on the back of it. That's one that's on 6th Street. That one you can disregard. This is the one that's behind the Daytona Outreach Center. That's the one at Arrow Wrecker. There's actually 2 in that picture.
Okay, isn't there more than one there?
At Arrow?
Yeah.
It all depends. I think he's bringing them on and moving them off.
Oh, okay.
And this is the one that's behind what used to be Baylor Plastering at Center and LPGA. So
And then one on Nova Road?
I didn't go up that far. I only stayed right here along Ridgewood. So there are a number of them that are still within other areas of the city, Nova Road, more on State and Carswell. I didn't,
think when you said it's one on Second, isn't that on Third?
I think it's on Second. It's behind the Jeep place. If you look at the location of where that is.
I thought there was one right on the other side of Marina Grande, this side of it.
There could be, if you go to the next one, Val. But that one, if you see where the location of Marina Grande is, I think that's actually 2nd Street, because 3rd Street would be the other side of Marina
I
Grande.
thought there was one on Third.
Yeah. So, none of those are really appealing in the state that they're in, and this is what we're trying to bring to your attention, that we're seeing more and more of these come into the city, and if we don't do something, even more will come that look like, they just do not look presentable. It's not look at this one. This is not the image that people want to see coming into the city. So we're trying to get ahead of what we think is going to be an ongoing problem. So we're presenting this to you for consideration, and we'll take it wherever the discussion leads.
Okay. Any questions for staff?
Couldn't we eliminate the one clause that says it can't have electrical, because I think that's a safety issue.
Say that again? I couldn't hear you.
Eliminate
Speak
the
into the
clause
mic.
of it not having electrical. Nobody's gonna live in it if it don't have plumbing, but if we have electrical in it, at least it's a safety issue. When you open the door at night, you want to be able to just turn on the light and see what's in there you need to get, so.
I don't think it would be a problem to take that section out.
What number is that in the,
But it
Brian,
says
if
you
you
have
could
no
come up.
electrical and no plumbing, but I could understand the no plumbing, but
And-
electrical's not gonna hurt. Everybody uses them, most everybody has lights in them.
I hear you.
I agree with you,
Number
Mr. Johnson.
12,
I agree with you that
Number 12, yeah. No
Need electric,
plumbing,
might plug
electric,
it-
or air
might-
conditioning shall be permitted inside of a shipping container.
I agree with you, you need electric. You may plug in a dehumidifier if you have sensitive things in there, so I agree that electrical.
They have an
And-
outlet where you plug something into it.
And so,
But leave the plumbing, air
Why would you
conditioning.
need plumbing there?
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
it says no plumbing, electric, or air conditioning, so you're saying just strike the electric?
Electrical.
No, we're leaving electric, and if you have to make it...
No, you're striking electric.
striking electric as a negative, it's a
That's what
double
I'm saying.
Oh, you
negative.
put it
It's
in,
a, yeah,
okay,
right, it's a
okay,
double
right.
negative.
I have a sheet. I mean, I didn't know what we were doing with this thing, because I thought we were supposed to talk about what we wanted, and then,
We were supposed to turn in last Friday.
no, we
2
were
Fridays
supposed to
ago.
talk about if we wanted to add or delete anything from the first
We can
ordinance.
still talk
Right.
about that, yeah.
Right.
It's the first reading.
have on your list, I think, is included. You can run it down and we'll.
Yeah, we can
Right,
do that.
Joe and I talked
So,
about this,
are these
you know, about
questions?
6 hours ago. No, this was some statements to make sure, I was gonna ask Brian if we kind of, if this
Okay,
was
so
kind
then,
of on there.
so Brian, if you could please
Brian,
come up, Commissioner.
What I was looking for was containers. Now, Joe pointed out that the blue on the maps was what, the industrial, didn't leave a whole lot of,
Well, there was a question that came up whether or not we should allow these only in the industrial zoned properties within the city. And when you pull up industrial zoning, there's actually very few compared to the CC1 zoning.
right, but
So-
CC1 zoning, okay, let me just read and tell me if this is what we got. Okay, I'm looking for containers allowed on State, Carswell, in the industrial areas, on US 1, I mean, not on US 1 or LPJ in the overlay district. Is that on there? Is that how we wrote it up?
That is how the ordinance.
Okay, and then I was
Yeah.
looking for existing containers should require some restrictions as the new ones with the permits, the wall, the skin look, the whole bit, stuccoed or whatnot,
They include
right?
that.
We have that, right? Now, we talked about grants. Is that something that we talk about above and beyond this?
That will not be in this ordinance. That'll
Okay.
have to be something
Yeah,
outside
that'd
of
be
this.
Okay.
separate.
And then, the electricity, I agree with, because, we're almost comparing it to a shed, and sheds do have electricity if they meet all the codes and
have
stuff,
to
and you
get a
get the
permit
proper
for that.
permits, right?
Right.
Now, do we need a roof on a container that's been skinned?
The roof feature is something that, after we had the workshop, I briefly had a discussion with the city manager who had received some feedback, and I thought that with the skinning, that there was roof feature, that was one of the things that was mentioned as
I
a
think John
possibility.
brought it up, that he didn't want a roof on it.
Yeah,
Do we really need a roof to?
I think the roof feature is overkill because it's 8.5 feet tall.
And it's already made
It's
to
already
be
get-
outdoors, so you're not
Right.
gonna see nothing, so it's another financial burden we're putting on the resident or the business owner or whatnot.
So we need a roof, it's already got a
Do
roof.
we really need a roof on an
I
8
can
and a
strike
foot?
that. I understood the skinning, but if I
Right.
misunderstood the roof,
Because on the ones
Feature, I
that
can remove
are
that.
enclosed,
They're already waterproof.
do they need a roof as well?
John
I can-
Penny
I can-
brought it up at
I
the
can strike it,
workshop,
strike
that we
it.
shouldn't have.
We're striking the roofs.
yeah, it was more designed in terms, or the idea was for it to be a decorative feature to disguise that it's a
Right.
container, but we
But
can
it's really
remove
not
that.
necessary, and it's a financial burden, right?
Okay,
You guys okay with that?
so remove the roof feature
You don't need an extra roof.
And I'm good with the electric, too.
and
Safety
remove
thing.
the,
Hey, you
No
turn on
electric.
the light, you see if somebody's hiding in it.
Yeah, right.
You know, or something.
Keep the
falling.
electric.
That was it, right, Joe?
Somebody, that on your list?
All
The
right.
rest of it was part of the grant program and then some of the time frames, but that's not really in the ordinance.
Don't get rid of that, though, because that, we will be talking about that at some point.
All right. Further questions for Walker, Mr. Walker? or
The
Forte?
two of them hit on the things I had. I just wasn't sure when to bring up the grants for the CRA, but.
Okay. I just have some questions, Mr. Walker, I don't know if you can answer them or not. In number 6 here in the ordinance, it says, if visible from any rights of way. So if you can't see it from a right of way, then do you still have to get a permit for this structure?
yes, you would still need a permit because the permitting process is the mechanism by which we conduct an inspection to make sure that it's been anchored according to the Florida Building Code.
But you don't have to skin it or build a wall, correct?
If it's not visible, no.
So if you can't see it from
It's
any
not visible from
right
the
of
right-of-way.
way. Okay, and then
the right
is this, explain to me, because we had a lot of conversation about whether or not this was, where it was going to be allowed, where it wasn't going to be allowed, so what I'm interested in is which zoning properties have to reskin or build a wall to be able to get the permit?
All of them.
Everyone.
Anywhere it would be
So-
visible
From
from
the right of way.
rights of way.
So even the ones in the industrial have to build a wall or reskin?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How much is it to build? I have no clue. How much is it? Does anybody know how much to build a masonry wall and have it stuccoed and/or?
A lot more than putting.
About $10,000.
A lot more than putting vinyl siding on the side or aluminum siding.
So
I think
skinning it is
stucco-
cheaper? You're saying?
Stucco in that thing would be so.
Do the wall and stuff,
very
and all is
inexpensive.
10 grand. It costs you 10 grand.
10 grand to build a wall?
No,
be building walls.
it's an option. They can either do an enclosure or they can reskin it. There may be situations where one is in the back corner that's already got a wall and they just want to put one wall in front of it. That may be the better option. So it's either corral it or skin it.
You could get 4x8 sheets of hardy board and screw it right to that metal, paint it.
Yeah, or
Nobody
you
knows
could take the
difference.
stuff and skin it, what do you call it, stucco it, and then just paint it.
Nobody
So
knows.
that's your building. It's not that big a deal.
So is that what you deem, and here, number 6, it says it has to provide an aesthetically pleasing appearance or facade. So who's the determining factor of aesthetically pleasing? Is that a legal term, Mr. Simpson? Or are we just the arbiters, staff can say whether it's aesthetically pleasing or not?
It's more arbitrary. I mean, unless you define that in the ordinance.
We would interpret it as craftsmanship. We're not going to allow somebody to just simply paint the container, because that's not what we're looking for. So it's got to be skinned, like the Vice Mayor said, either in a hardy board, or it could be in a vinyl siding, or something that finishes the product.
So I remember building code when we were going back years ago. Mr. Simpson, you were speaking about certain building code to where, legally speaking, about architecture, and we don't want to get into too much dictating what something necessarily looks like and whether it's looks good or not.
It's in the CRA referring to the Florida vernacular.
Right, all those terms and.
It's when you get into aesthetic issues, the more details and specifics you can provide, the better it is, so people can, when people read the regulations, they know what they need to do to comply.
Right.
So the more specificity you have, the better. I'll give you an example. In Lake Helen, when I first started representing them, they just had, they have a historic district, and they had 5 styles that you could build to. No pictures, no drawings, no nothing. They just reference 5 styles. Now we have an architectural book guideline that have all these different pictures and diagrams that when people want to know what does it mean to be Florida vernacular, they can go and look at it, what's been approved. So when you get, and there's always going to be a level of subjectivity to aesthetics, but the more objective you can make it, the better. And the guiding rule is, can somebody reading the regulation reasonably understand what they need to do to comply? So that's kind of the guide you kind of try to use when you draft these, when you read it. And so the more specificity you put in there, the better it is.
That's just why I bring it up, is it caught my attention as what is aesthetically pleasing. What may be aesthetically pleasing to me isn't to my commission, and sometimes that is
Slippery
apparent,
slope, right? Yeah.
right? So, and I am not, be clear, I am not accusing the staff to deny something. It looks good or whatnot, and you guys say, no, I'm not going to do this because I don't like it and I woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. But as we make laws, I'm not making it for you, Mr. Walker or Mr. Forte, but maybe the people that come behind you that I don't know, and I won't be here, and maybe they're not here. And so, I kind of have.
We put an example of stucco on there. Maybe we'll just add more examples.
Yeah,
Stucco,
maybe.
hardy board.
That's what I was going to ask. Do we need to be more specific?
Solid surface, maybe?
Right, well, hardy board, like you said, with blah, blah, blah.
We can put more example. We can take aesthetically pleasing and
can
actually
take that
put
out.
examples.
Finished, is it more like a finished,
That'll say, including but not limited to these finishes.
Or sometimes it's better to say what's not allowed than what is allowed.
Yeah.
You say, this is what we don't want.
and we just don't want paint?
Yeah, so you just can't come and paint the.
I think you're trying to eliminate the ribs in it is what, if that's what those things are called, those.
Yeah.
Things that jut out. Yeah.
And the rust factor, because if they paint it or don't paint it, they're going to turn into rusty buttons.
Brian, are there acceptable exterior material under the Florida Building Code for the exterior of a structure?
There are. It's pretty broad when you're talking about what goes on the exterior. But I mean,
Would that be
wood,
too broad
brick,
for what would-
stucco, any of those things
Because
when it
painting
comes
might be one
to.
of them.
But would that be too broad to be aesthetically pleasing in terms of what we're trying to accomplish? Or could we say it has to be an exterior surface permitted under the Florida Building Code?
I don't believe the Florida Building Code gives
Details like that?
details of that. But what we could do is take out that it has to be aesthetically pleasing and just say that it needs to be covered with items such as stucco, wood, hardy board, and that painting is not, does not qualify as a
Right,
cover.
Brian, it'd be painting only, because we wanted to
Right.
paint it, but we wanted to finish it first.
Yes, you're exactly right. So if we take out aesthetically pleasing, that kind of removes the subjectivity of it, and we just say more now so that you have this structure, and it needs to be covered with these items, and we can give an example of items and say that it cannot be just simply painted.
Okay, and then, so, and my broader point too is I'm glad that that'll be cleaned up, but, you know, as I said before, I'm still kind of where I'm at with this. I believe that we should grandfather in, the businesses that already have it. I feel it's going to be a burden placed upon them if they have to spend X amount of money. I guess from what I'm hearing, that the skinning is not going to be the $10,000 of what the enclosure will be, which is better, but I just feel like we have had absolute no complaints about these things, and so I think that we're making a law just to make a law, and it punishes some people, and I with that being said, I do believe that there should be something on the books. I do for moving forward, but I hate that aspect of it, so I just have to say that for the record. And the last thing I'll say too is, are we sure that we want to require this for the industrial zones? Because industrial, to me, if you drive down, like you said, State or any of those in our industrial areas, they are pretty. There's nothing nice about what it looks like. You know, there's certain warehouses that look decent, but
I had that same comment to Mr. Forte today, and we pulled up the zoning map. And where I believed was our industrial area, most of the things that you consider industrial uses are CC1 zones.
Oh, along State Avenue and.
We have very little industrial area in our city.
Huh.
Saying the blue area is very small. pieced out,
The
yeah.
record yards and all that stuff are CC1. You think they're industrial because they've been grandfathered in non-conforming uses. But I was going down that path with you, but the industrial is insignificant.
Well, then, would we like to just revisit going back to just doing this in the CRA, to leave those parts out? Because I just feel like it's overkill to make them build something really nice out in front of
We're not asking
something
them to
that's.
build anything, Mayor. We're just asking them to just,
No, we are. If they
Protect it.
have that, they have to build the siding, or they have to build the wall around it. Yes, we are, Commissioner.
no, we're just asking them to cover it with something that's minimal. And in the grant process we're gonna go through is gonna be even more of a.
So Robin
You're
just
talking like
whispered in my ear
hundreds of
that
dollars.
skinning it with aluminum would be about $3,500.
$3,500.
That's aluminum.
I
Stucco's cheaper than that.
So I put up on the overhead so that you can see when everybody's referencing industrial, and years ago, we changed a lot of industrial out for CC1. So along your State in Carswell, this is the area, the old CEMEX plant is down here. This is the area along the railroad track, which is where Rick Magiri used to have oh no, that's not that one. That is, I gotta make this bigger because I can't even see it. Oh, it is, yeah.
Blue, right, Joe?
Yeah,
Just
that's
the blue.
6th Street.
Right.
That's 6th Street, oh, okay. This is Enterprise Court off of LPGA, and the backside of that gets to Walker. And this is a industrial IPUD, and this is the back end of the property that's under consideration for an RV park. So when you talk about industrial, there's not a lot of industrial zoning, because a lot of the industrial zoning was converted to CC1. So I just wanted to make sure you're all kind of understood that.
Is the bright purple, is that CC1?
Yes.
And then what is the red, the salmon color? In the middle, like
R.
look in the middle of the city.
Residential.
That's our.
This,
Okay, so it's part of State Avenue is residential?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
800 block is state. My
Robin
neighbors
lives
live
as
on
residential,
8 or
State
900,
Avenue.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, Robin's house is on State Avenue.
You know, but
It's
looking at that, those are the places that I consider really industrial, if, you know, those parts.
That's why we gotta be careful.
There's just that middle part, the residential area that breaks it up.
I think to go back to one of Mr. Forte's analogies is, this is another rung up the ladder. This is like one little thing. So you're not going to clean up a recycling center by skinning a container. But it's a little step. And these things, from what I understand, most of these businesses use these for temporary storage units. So if they're temporary, they can go to All Aboard and use temporary storage there and get it off of their property altogether. But if they want to turn it into permanent storage, which is what some of these places have, then they can either build an accessory structure and comply with all the building codes, or put one of these on there and comply with our permitting and new
Or go to Ted's and
ordinances.
get a shed.
Or go to Ted's and get a shed.
Right. Which is gonna cost them the same amount as putting together a container and stucco in it and painting it.
Only difference is that container is bulletproof. It's not
Yeah.
going anywhere and it's secure,
Yeah.
highly secure.
And,
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Business, you know.
if I may, the point about, and that was really the big thing for me, is making sure that the existing containers had to go through the same process as any other containers that would be permitted, because they're grandfathered in, or, excuse me, they're there now, existing. And I understand the whole grandfathering in theory, and I don't have a problem allowing them to get permitted now. But as I stated in the workshop, I just feel it's very important to have them up to the same standards as any other container that would be in the city. Otherwise, we have, I don't know, 10, 12, maybe half a dozen containers in the city that are just that, containers. And you're still going to have that appearance of a rusted container. And if we do this process, then as Commissioner Penny had stated in the workshop, and most of us agree with, is to provide a grant program so that we alleviate that cost, or the majority of the cost, to those business owners. So I don't think it's going to be as much of a pain for those business owners, because we're not wanting to give a burden to them. We're trying to improve our community. And if we help them through the grant process, then that's not a financial burden on them at all, but we're still able to improve the city. And so that's,
It's the cost of doing business, man.
Yeah, and I'm all for that grant. If this passes, I'm all for that grant to help out those ones. So I hear you on that. Are there any further questions for
Just ask you
staff?
one more question.
Yes,
while
sir.
we're at it. Like, say, in a residential area, we're not gonna allow them, right?
No.
Correct.
Well, what if somebody has a homestead exemption, they're not planning on ever leaving, they're gonna stay there? They take that shipping container, put it in the backyard, what are you gonna do about it?
The only thing that we could do is code enforce them.
And leave it
Eventually,
sit-
a lien may be put on the property, but if they stay there for,
And leave it sit there, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
there's
They
nothing we can
they
do.
could put a half a dozen of them there, right?
yeah.
Same thing.
Nothing you can do about it.
Until they sell the house. All right, any further questions from staff? All right, at this time, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience? Yes, sir, Mr. Hanger.
Waiting patiently all night.
Yeah, you waited patiently all night.
3 hours.
State your name and address for the record.
Robin Hanger, 950 Ridgewood Avenue. You're saying, I mean, the only way you're ever going to clean up the city is what we're trying to do here. Not trying to hurt anyone, just trying to clean the existing ones up and stop people from, stop having a new rule and allowing things to continue. Because we don't have, like Joe says, we don't have a flood of people trying to put them in the city. We just got to deal with the ones we got. But I believe that we need to add or make some, be aware of Nova Road somehow. If you're only going to have LPGA and US 1 and not Nova Road, you're going to have businesses here soon, because he's going to run out of room, that are going to end up putting these containers there, and then we're going to have the same problem of
This
the
includes
blight. I
Nova.
think you need to include
This includes Nova.
some portions of Nova Road.
It includes all of it,
this does include that.
the entire city.
I'm sorry, I only heard US 1 and Nova Road, or US 1 and
There's already one on
LPGA.
Nova Road, 40
No,
feet
no.
long, right south of Higgs.
Robin, US 1 and LPGA are not permitted.
Right, not permitted, and I think Nova Road needs to not be permitted without some kind of
Right, it's not.
Okay.
Yep.
Nova Road
Nova Road is allowed.
is permitted,
Nova Road will be permitted.
right.
I was
And-
told this is everywhere.
No, you're thinking
no,
the
no.
wrong way.
On LPGA and Ridgewood Avenue, you are not allowed to have a container.
That can
Robin
be
is
seen.
saying you should also prohibit containers from Nova.
Because if you don't, you're going to have the same problem that we got now on US 1 and LPGA. And like I said, I've told Joe, I've got a container, but it's been there for, since 98, I think, during the fires is when I put it in. But mine is back in the back, covered. It's got a structure around it, on top of it. I'm going to go and look tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure, 99% sure, I meet everything there. But I just want to protect Nova Road too, because, Nova Road's an inlet to our city in somewhat. So just be careful there.
Well, let him finish his.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's right.
That's it. Just be careful with Nova Road, because if we don't watch it there, I can tell you there's one business that's at 6th Street and Nova Road that is run out of room. And he had containers at his old facility. He'll have to do something. And it can be seen. And, it's just, I think that the ideal of having these things covered and somewhat is good. I think aluminum skinning is the way to go. Stucco is 3 times of what aluminum skinning would be, because you have to put a mesh on it for it to stick. So it's a lot of construction to do that. Block wall I'm against and all that, but I think that'd be overkill. They might as well build a building then. Aluminum siding on it, I can see that.
Can I ask you how much that would be, aluminum
36,
siding?
17.
For a 40-foot container, to do 3 sides of it and enough to make the doors, to cover the doors, it'd be about $3,500. I checked today.
But that's 40 foot. Most of these are
Yeah.
20 foot.
Yeah.
And that's if they paid it all. If we do a grant program,
So,
that's what I'm saying.
Anyhow, just be careful with Nova Road. I just don't want to see us cover these areas and then not Nova Road, and we have a problem later. That's all.
Thank you.
Then I-
Let's finish.
Okay.
There's no one really else here. But is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this item tonight? Seeing none, I'll close public participation.
No,
What was your
just to
question?
clear up, because I'm a little confused. The Nova Road is still allowed to put the containers
But they gotta
meeting with the same requirements. And the reason we chose US 1 and LPGA overlay district is because they butt up to residential, and we're trying to protect the citizens from seeing them. Now, is that going to be the case on Nova Road? Are there like residential houses that butt up to Nova Road that we need to be cautious of?
Right behind the business.
There are, when we talk about US 1 and LPGA and not allowing them, we're talking specifically about those properties that touch US 1 and LPGA. And that's because they're in our redevelopment, our redevelopment overlay, the most visible areas of our redevelopment overlay. While Nova Road is not within our CRA, it is very, very visible. And there are residential homes that do butt up against it. So if it's the decision of the commission to add properties that touch Nova Road to this list of areas where containers are prohibited, staff can do that.
Does that answer your question?
Well, it answers my question, but it doesn't alleviate the heartburn of protecting the citizens from the visibility factor that I thought we were kind of concentrating on. The reason we were doing the CRA district was because we were afraid of the people that live behind. If you're on Ridgewood Face, like in my case, my store is on Ridgewood, my house is behind it. So if somebody else's house is behind it, they don't want to look at containers. So we eliminated that from being, a candidate. Now, if that's the case on Nova Road, we haven't really protected that same citizen from having to look at a container.
But Nova Road's not in the CRA.
Yeah.
That's the whole problem.
The main concern I have on Nova Road is.
It doesn't have to. You can still prohibit it on
Oh, I know.
Nova Road
I know.
if you choose to.
So,
In the language, you mean?
Make sure Nova Road, they don't have them out in front of the property though.
No, but then the backyard has it, and it's sitting there with
We
the
still
neighbor.
gotta
looking
make
at it.
sure they don't have them out by the road like they do now.
but then the CRA grant won't be able to help out those
There's nothing
businesses.
on Nova
So
Road, no.
Well, those are new business coming in. I don't know if there's any out there that have them already.
there are some, and
Oh, are there?
All right, did you have another question?
Well, I was gonna make a statement and then a motion if you would accept it.
Okay.
The Nova Road thing is new. I've studied about, you can tell Joe, or ask Joe, I've talked to him 20 times about this thing, all the different moving parts. I'm ready to make a motion to approve the ordinance, striking the word electric and striking the words aesthetically pleasing and adding examples. That would be my motion, and
Wait,
then,
and
the
strike
roofs.
roof. The
and
roof.
strike roof. And then I'll have 2 weeks to contemplate about Nova Road, and we can change that, because if we add Nova Road in there right now, I have to vote no for it, because I'm not prepared for that. So that's my motion.
And I'll second that motion.
We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Penny, Vice Mayor Penny, and seconded by Commissioner Curry. All right, so now any discussion needed? No?
Well, the other question I'd have is to make sure that they have them behind the businesses, not out front, no matter where.
That's in there, that's in there.
That's in there.
Yeah, from not in the view. All right, and I see how this vote's going to be, but I am going to vote no tonight, just for the reasons I stated earlier. And then we'll discuss this at the second reading in 2 weeks, right, Brian? Okay. All right, so with that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries 4-1. All right, and now we are moving to our public hearings. Number one is ordinance 2022-0-3051. Mr. Simpson?
Mayor, we're 3 weeks to the next meeting.
Oh, 3 weeks, okay, we got an extra week in there, okay.
Ordinance number 2022-0-3051 by title only for second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Holly Hill, Florida, approving the Eighth Amendment to the Marina Grand Residential Base Mixed-Use Plan Unit Development, MPUD Development Agreement, to add permitted uses, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Mr. Walker?
Yes, and I will start off by letting the commission know that there has been a change to this development agreement since first reading. So I thought what I would do is go through the full presentation and then talk a little bit about the change that's been made and the reason for it. So back in November of 2004, the City Commission approved the Marina Grand Residential Mixed-Use Plan Unit Development, and that basically set into motion a mixed-use plan unit development for the property that has become known as Marina Grand. And over the years, the initial MPUD agreement's been amended several times. There have been modifications to address various plan and procedural issues. Paragraph D is titled Land Uses Within the PD, and it states that the street frontage retail not to exceed 16,000 square feet is provided, and that the retail spaces shall be designed so as to encourage pedestrian access and capture vehicular trips from within the development. The street retail spaces are shown in Exhibit A up on your screen. Now, over the years, the retail spaces have remained vacant, and a large part of this, or reason for this, is that there's been just lack of parking to support the retail uses. The current owner feels that expanding the uses to include uses with lower parking requirements would help with regard to successfully getting the retail spaces occupied. There are currently 13,000 square feet of retail spaces under roof, and the owner proposes to convert a maximum of 9,500 square feet of that space to interior private storage. And these would house storage units that are approximately 25 square feet in size, with some being larger at 100 square feet. This does not address the volume, since they would have space above, so there could be shelves, but we're just talking about the footprint.
So, Brian,
Yes,
when
sir.
we're talking about cubic feet, that ceiling in there is 12, 15 feet tall?
Yeah.
So would you imagine chain link cages going from top to bottom 25 square feet, and you can stack whatever you want to, as high as you want?
I would let the applicant explain to you more how they plan on
Okay.
putting these into place. I don't know if they're using cages but you're correct in that there would be volume up
Right.
above, and they could put some type of shelves, but
You
you're
could stack a
still
bunch of
talking about.
containers in there.
I'm sorry?
You could stack a bunch of containers in there.
Yes.
As long as they're skinned.
No.
They might be big
Okay.
enough to fit a horse.
There you go. Take care of all three in one shot.
So the interior storage spaces, they would not change the exterior facade, and they would be first offered to the residents of Marina Grande before being made available to the public. However, given that there are approximately 486 units in the towers, it's expected that most, if not all, of the storage units would be rented by the residents of Marina Grande. So there would be little, if any, need for parking that would be generated by these storage spaces. There'd be no signage, no logo, or advertising of the personal storage spaces. The applicant is also requesting to expand the uses to include upscale restaurant, bistro, and cafe uses, and there's an office currently there in the remaining 3,500 square feet under roof. So currently, there are 9 retail spaces. The applicant proposes to use one of the spaces as the existing office, along with 2 spaces for upscale restaurant, bistro, or cafe uses, and 6 spaces for interior personal storage. The restaurant use will be at the far end units, the north end and the south end, and allow outdoor seating. The applicant also requests that they be permitted to glass in the existing open air spaces under roof for the restaurant uses only. Storage uses will be in the middle of the building, basically sandwiched between the restaurant and the office uses. The applicant has not provided any renderings or elevations of what the restaurant, bistro, or cafe spaces will look like, but the applicant has stated that they will be upscale in nature. So staff looked at some synonyms for upscale, and those include words such as deluxe, high-end, exclusive, top-end, prime, superior, upper class, classy, and ritzy. So prior to permit approval for the restaurant, bistro, or cafe development, the applicant will be required to submit renderings of the development to demonstrate to the city that such development will meet the intent of the word upscale. And this would be in the judgment of the city. The proposed...
So city staff or city commission?
It's something that could be brought back to the commission if you'd like to see it. In fact, that would be similar to an arrangement that we have with Fountainhead. Or, if it pleases the commission, it could be something that staff does it. When this was put together, the idea was that staff would look at it, including the city manager. But if the commission would like it brought back to them, then we can have that done. So if in the judgment of the city, the proposed restaurant, bistro, or cafe does not meet the intent of the word upscale, then the city would have the right to deny approval of the permit request. Now, in considering whether or not to approve the applicant's request, the commission has to consider whether or not the request is consistent with the policies of the city's comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan's future land use element, under policy 1.1.2, addresses what can be permitted under the property's residential-based mixed-use land use. That policy reads, and I'm reading just a part of it. Residential-based mixed use. This category is established to encourage better integration of residential use and complementary commercial and other non-residential land uses, and to provide property owners with expanded opportunities for redevelopment of blighted and/or underutilized parcels. So obviously, this isn't a blighted property, but you could say that it is partially unutilized, given that none of the retail is actually being used. This policy's reference to the city's land development references the city's land development regulations, but does not specifically mention interior storage units or restaurant uses. The Board of Planning and Appeals, and now the City Commission, is left to its judgment as to whether or not the proposed office, storage, or restaurant uses are consistent with the residential-based mixed-use land use. However, it is staff's judgment that the proposed uses are consistent with the complementary commercial and other non-residential land uses portion of the stated land use. Now, as stated, this is a proposed major amendment to a plan development. And a plan development really occurs when a developer wants to do something that can't be done when they're adhering to the requirements of the straight zoning districts. So basically, they enter into a negotiation with the city, and it's a negotiation wherein the end result is one that the developer benefits and the public benefits. So the city gets something and the developer gets something. So usually the public benefit goes beyond just an increase in tax base. There's really no guarantee that just because a development is done under the PD process, that it's going to provide more in terms of tax base than if the project were done under the straight zoning regulations. So oftentimes, the public benefit may be that the developer has to provide a use that the public will enjoy. It might be a park, or in this case, a restaurant or cafe. So to guarantee that the public gets its benefit, a project may occur where the developer and the public get their benefit at the same time. So the project is constructed, and whatever it is that the public is going to get is constructed at the same time that the developer is doing their project and getting their benefit from it. Or sometimes the city may get its benefit up front. But if the benefit to the city or the citizens is to be received at a later date, there should be some way to make sure that the benefit is going to be received, some way to make sure that the public is going to get its benefit. So if the developer receives benefit A today, then there has to be a mechanism to guarantee that the citizens will get benefit B tomorrow or at some time in the future. So when this originally was proposed, staff was under the impression that the restaurant and all was going to kind of be constructed all about the same time, that everything was going to happen all within the same general time frame. But then discussions occurred at first reading concerning the requirement that the restaurant be CO'd prior to the storage being approved. And thinking about that, staff then went and spoke with the city manager, and we thought that it was important to make a change to the language of the development agreement. And that change is basically that the restaurant bistro shall be complete and have received a certificate of completion prior to any final approval, use, or certificate of completion being issued for any storage uses. And this would guarantee that the citizens get their benefit with regard to this negotiated process. And because right now, we don't have any guarantee that once the storage goes in, that the cafe will happen or that the restaurant would happen. And so that's why this change was made since first reading. So based on this, with this change in mind, staff recommends that the City Commission adopt the ordinance amending the Marina Grand Residential MPUD, a major amendment, approved on November 23rd, 2004 originally, to allow office, upscale restaurant, bistro, and cafe uses, along with interior personal storage for the retail spaces located, or the retail spaces only, located at 235 Riverside Drive, parcel number 5337-34-06-0014. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Questions? Yes, sir.
I need some clarification, Brian, on paragraph 5 in the ordinance. I know we're talking about, we're using the words restaurant, bistro, or cafe. And I think those are interchangeable based upon someone's perception or someone's taste. And at first reading, it was my impression that the cafe and the restaurant slash, see, it's in paragraph 5, it says restaurant, comma, bistro or cafe. Paragraph 6, it says restaurant slash bistro. So I'm trying to understand, it's my understanding that the real estate office at some time was going to be turned into a high-end coffee shop. So let's call that the cafe.
I think they were going to be combined. They weren't going to get rid of the office.
Okay, but that was going to be the cafe or coffee shop.
Yes, sir.
And then the other end was going to be the restaurant.
The
Correct.
restaurant bistro.
Right, but without renderings and without drawings, someone could take this and say, we're going to put 2 cafes, because the use is restaurant, comma, bistro, or cafe. So you could have a coffee end at the shop and a Starbucks at the other end. And so I need a little more clarification, and maybe from the applicant, is that the south end is going to be the restaurant, and the north end is going to be the real estate office cafe. You see am I confusing
Yes.
it too much? It's,
No, you're absolutely.
I need some clarification as to what's going to be where.
We can
And-
update the rendering.
and
There's Val, can you bring up the?
But the rendering just shows 2 arrows, and it doesn't say this is going to be the restaurant and this is going to be the cafe. It just says,
Right. So
just
we can
points to them.
update this, because this was just general. So what we can do is at the south end, we can clarify that to be restaurant slash bistro use, and at the north end, cafe, and make that part of the PD.
Right, but is
plan.
I guess I'm splitting hairs. Is a cafe really a coffee shop? Or a cafe, in my opinion, could be a cafe and a bistro, could be the same thing. One, you're going to get a little tapas and some high-end coffee. The other one, you're going to get some...
We can add definitions.
I don't know, I'm just, normally in PUD, things are spelled out more specifically, and I can look at them, and it's quite clear what's going to go where. And I'm not quite certain that we might be putting the cart before the horse.
And we could clarify some of that with the applicant in 1 minute.
Right.
But do you have further questions for staff?
No, I just wanted to make that clarification there.
And we'll have the applicant address it when he comes up, or she comes up. Mr.
Brian, me?
Daniel?
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. I just wanted to make sure, you said that we had some sort of a guarantee. Is there a guarantee for, like you say, that we get something and they get something?
Well, that's-
Is there a monetary guarantee, or are we just going on good faith?
Well, no, right now, what staff is asking is that you approve this, but with the requirement that the restaurant, basically at the south end, receive its certificate of completion. There's already a certificate of occupancy, that it receive its certificate of completion.
Before.
And basically be ready to function before we approve the certificate of completion for any of the storage.
Right.
And that would guarantee that the citizens get that benefit. Now, if you, as a commission, decide not to do that, then my staff's opinion is that you should put into place some mechanism to
Right.
guarantee that you're going to get it at a future date.
Like money in
Whether that
escrow
be
or something?
money in escrow,
Right.
or some mechanism to guarantee that. But typically, with the PD process being a negotiated process,
Right.
citizens get something and the applicant gets something.
Right.
It usually occurs at the same time.
Mr. Penny?
And Brian, I guess maybe to my point on number 6, maybe it should say that the south end is completed and received the certificate of occupancy prior to. That way, someone can't say, well, because the north end is almost completed. You know, it's built out. It looks pretty nice. So all you do is put a cappuccino machine in there and call it a cafe. We haven't added anything. So if we stipulate that the south end, I think that the citizens get more bang for their buck than just saying bistro, restaurant.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions for staff? All right. Thank you, Mr. Walker. Would the applicant like to come up, and state your
Long
name
time,
and
man.
address for
Good
the
evening,
record? And
everybody.
thank you for waiting so long through this meeting.
No problem.
Do you like horses? Do you like horses?
Actually, I was gonna talk about it from my observation. I've been riding horses since I was young, and I was gonna say the horse can jump any fence.
Yeah, well, that's what I kind of
I heard
assumed.
the gentleman saying anxiousness about his wife, but would you be anxious if you have a horse in the backyard attached to yours? Common sense. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Tarek Nemo. I lived in Holly Hill for 8 years right now at the Marina Grand. I'm gonna, this is the first time I'm meeting everybody. I met Chris before. So, what I want to talk about the retail. My partner, Mike Panaggio, probably everybody knows him. We talked about the Marina Grand retail up on the sales of the entire inventory. I've helped Daytona Grand in selling all their inventory, and we looked at this vacant, which it looks abandoned from the outside, retail. None of the residents being able to use it. None of the citizen of Holly Hill being able to use it for 15 years right now. It's not like 1 day or 1 month, 15 years. And there is a reason for that. It didn't just happen because of, luck or chance. We acquired the retail back in November 2021. And since that time, I've been in touch with major corporate companies, local restaurants, trying to bring traffic into the retail, trying to bring any retail space into it. My biggest challenge with every single person to come and partner, do anything together, or help him, give him, certain time of years to build something, to help just to start or establish a business. Every single one of them, when they come, we love it, this is where we want to be. Due diligence, they decline, they move away. The major reasons is the parking. There's not enough parking in here. And that is the main reason where I've been struggling to bring anybody into town, into the retail to open something here. So we looked at it, we said, okay, Mike and I decided to put a survey because the backbone for the business support is the Marina Grand residents. So we put a survey for 486 units. We had over 475 resident or membership at the Marina Grand putting the survey out and talking about what they need.
That's a good return.
Absolutely. So
It really is.
I do have all the statistics. I have all the documentation to show what they require, talking about the community, Holly Hill, what they like, what they need. Before the benefit, I needed to see what they need so we can provide to them. Obviously, the parking was a big challenge. We paid big amount to acquire the retail, and then we said, okay, what are we going to do? We can't open anything, and it's an empty shell from the inside. So the survey indicate that number one requirement is storage. Everybody downsizing. I've sold close to 170 units in this compound. Every single person coming in, he's having a lack of storage. So currently people go outside and try to store their belongings, go all the way. So we looked at it, Mike and I, and said, okay, what about if we provide some sort of need or benefit to the people and tell them, here is the storage, and I need to find a solution for the parking issue. We tried to look at the parking garage. It was a lot of challenge for the staff. So quickly what we looked at, we said, okay, what about if we provide them storage for the time being? And then we can open something on the south end or a north end and then see how the traffic plays. Or if Chris comes say, I want to open a restaurant, let's go partner on a restaurant. I need parking. You have all this parking. The storage does not require a lot of parking because we're going to have 93 units and 99.9% of them, they will be taken by the owners of the Marina Grand. Whoever owns there, they're going to be attacking it right away to take it. That will give me enough time to see how the traffic and how the parking works well. We currently acquired another parcel across from the Marina Grand. It's the Mad Batter used to be.
Oh, yeah.
And we have in a lot of plans. We do have challenges too. So what I'm looking for here, I'm looking for support rather than another challenge to fix. We started the application. Before I start in there, I want to talk to you about the units. So we do have 14 feet high, but we're going to put sort of cages. It's going to be 9-foot max, and it's going to be covered on the top. The reason why we chose storage because it's very easy for us to start packing each unit down, wind it down, take the metal out, and then turn it into another retail. Rather than build the entire retail, and then we put all this money and cost of build out, and then I can't do anything with it because of the parking. So it made sense to turn it into storage, and then we can wind each unit down and turn it into a retail. I'm trying to work on fixing up the parking issue. We've been trying with a trailer park across the road. There's a lot of moving parts right now in this area, whether the community right next to us, the Cabana, the trailer park, hopefully. So I'm giving it a little bit of more time to see what we can do in the future to turn it into a retail. But in the same time today, I need some sort of financial support, and in the same time, give a benefit to the owners at the Marina Grants. So that's why we chosen to have the storage space. Now, starting the storage process, since 2 months ago, we got quotation. The number to build the storage on this size, it was close to $675,000. I called last week Gary Gouch. He's one of the biggest metal framing company here in town. I called him last week just to say, hey, we're in the process, we got second approval, we're gonna have a 24th, the last approval to see if we're gonna proceed or not. It was increased by 20%. He immediately sent me the email. He said, just to let you know, we have a 20% increase. That's put a lot of pressure, financial pressure on us too. So I do know that you need a guarantee. We definitely go in for a bistro. That's 100%, because that will increase the value of my parcel in the same time. But to open the bistro is going to take me close to 4 to 6 months to have it complete. 4 to 6 months, I don't know where's the price or the budget for the storage is going to be. And I don't know if it's going to make financial sense or not at this point. We're pretty well known in the area. We definitely want to have the bistro, but in the same time, having the storage, I need to lock it in, and it's a big chunk of money to put it down and say, okay, we're going to proceed or not. So that's what I'm requesting today. I'm requesting actually the city support to say, go with the storage. We're here to stay. We're not here to go. I think we're going to have a lot of relationship with the city down the road. If we give our word that we are going to open the bistro, it's 100% going to be opened. I actually had a meeting today with the owner of Panagio restaurant. He does pizza in Ormond. He has a big restaurant, 150 seats in Ormond Beach, and he has another one in South Daytona. He came.
I'm sorry, which one?
Panagos Pizza. Panagos.
Pagano.
Oh,
Pagano.
Pagano. That's why it didn't sound
Pagano.
familiar. I was like,
He came from New York. His name is Christopher. His dad is Christopher too. So we came down and we looked at all our options. He sees the parking issue, and then I told him, I said, listen, I want to open the bistro. I give you the restaurant across the road. I want to open something really nice here. I want you to run it. So in the same time, I want to attract the right person in town. I don't want to attract the wrong person. If our name is going to be attached into something, I want it to be top notch. Now, going back to the storage, it's not going to change anything on the outside. It's not in my interest to change anything on the outside, because my ultimate goal is to have a retail strip. So down the line, 1 or 2 years, we are going to wind down each unit and open a retail.
Thank you, Tarek. And let me rein this in for a minute, that I believe it is what you are asking is to approve this today, but strike number 6, which says the restaurant bistro shall be complete and have received a certificate of completion prior to any final approval use or certificate of completion being issued for any storage uses. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So I think that's what this commission will have to speak on. Are there any further questions to the applicant?
Yes.
Or anything further? Yeah, okay.
So there's 9,500 square feet of storage, and how many units do you project in there?
97.
97? And you've already shared some of your business strategies with us. What's your projected cash flow? It's $810,000 to build it, and you have 97 units. What's the average monthly fee there? $100?
The annually is $325K.
Okay. So you'll get your money back in 3 years?
Little bit more than that.
Okay.
Because it's not only the cost of build out.
Right, no, yeah, you have your,
Expensive and stuff.
but, and
I do have one of the biggest management to manage it as well.
right, Mike shared that with us.
Yeah, that's why I cut you short. Mike shared a lot of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mike shared that with us, so, you know, and not that, I just met you, I've heard your name, I know you have a good reputation, your partners have a good reputation, but when I sit here, I do have a responsibility because developers have come in. The reason we have that empty retail space is because the developer was smarter than the city at that time and got density bonuses, right? That's why they did it. So it's been vacant for 15 years, and a lot of the citizens feel that we should have been smarter. So from a business perspective, if the city gives you the storage and you get your money back in 3 or 4 years, and then it's $400,000 positive cash flow because the rates have gone up. And those 2 empty buildings are still sitting there. The citizens are going to go, didn't you learn last time? We have a project on Center Street that we learned a lot from, that we had some empty promises. And so what would you propose if you were sitting here? What kind of guarantee, other than a handshake, money in escrow, what do we do? I know there's a build out for a restaurant is going to be a lot of money, and then you got to get a vendor and a partner and a good match. What would you propose that we could make this decision tonight to guarantee our residents that bistro will be there within 18 months?
18 months is good time. I'll tell you something with honesty. We've invested more than almost close to $2 million in this area before we proceed for storage or anything. I am taking all the time, and I have the direction from Mike to get all of this up and running, which is the pizza shop across of the Marina Grand and the bistro and coffee shop ASAP. So I wasn't prepared for this question, to be honest.
Right.
But what I can tell you, there is no businessman would leave 3,500 square feet empty without any build out, without anything to the public. So as soon as I can confirm for my partner that, hey, we have this ongoing, I can just put it for rest and move to the cafe immediately. And I did some rendering. We do have some pictures for rendering to show how we're going to do it on the south side and the north side. Actually, we have it for the north side, and how we're going to proceed. But honestly, all I can tell, go ahead.
No, and I appreciate your perspective, and I've been sitting here the longest, is that we've had people come in and take a bite at the apple and get the density bonus. And then, not you, but come back and get the second bite of the apple with the storage, because it's positive cash flow. And then 3 years from now, we've been trying to get that bistro there, but we can't get it, and we have those 2 dusty inns. So how about we just make it all storage? Everyone will be happy, because something will be better than nothing.
I'll give you the guarantee.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. We would put restriction on no more storage in this area. That's it. We'd take the 9,000 and that's it.
And that's good, but the city didn't get anything. What did we get?
I would be left with 3,500 square feet of empty space, and that will carry cost of taxes and fees and all of that. There is no benefit to leave 3,500 square feet empty, but at the same time, it will make me gain if any.
But you have 9,500 square feet of empty space now, unless we do this for you. So in the negotiation, it's a give and take. Our city planner said it's a give and take, and I'm not picking on you personally. I'm just learning from past mistakes that I've seen made, that if you're so sure that it will be there in 18 months, if you put a little money in a bank account and said, if it's not there in 18 months, you can keep it, guys, and build a Veterans Memorial Park or whatever you want to do with it, then you haven't lost anything except the interest on your money, that you're not making any money in the stock market now anyways. So I don't know, I heard Commissioner Danio, so escrow, and I was like, oh, wow. put $100,000 in an escrow account and let it sit there, and that way we're guaranteed. I don't know. And here's the other thing, is that I'm prepared to say, let's continue this second reading of this and let you negotiate and your partners negotiate, because I don't have the ability to speak for them right now, with city staff to come back in 3 weeks with a more concrete plan that everyone can live with. Because right now, I would be so grateful if your renderings and your plans and your promises come through, but if they don't, I'm just going to kick myself in the butt. And so right now, I cannot support striking that paragraph 6.
I appreciate that, but let me tell you one thing quickly. We did, city and the owners had an empty space for 15 years.
Right.
So we came here to try to figure out something that everybody can benefit out of it. I did have the biggest challenge, and Chris is aware of it, and I'm trying to have somebody to support me. Opening the storage, it would help having something full, because as of now, everybody has it empty. And to be honest, all what I'm going to have to do is say, okay, didn't work out, just turn around and try to sell it and move on. And the next person will have the same exact issue. I've done a lot of due diligence. What I can guarantee you today, and at the same time, I just told you, I lost 20% increase just by waiting to get it all approved. I don't think it's feasible to, freeze another cash, since we have $2 million in investment, and I'm trying to work on the cross the road, I'm trying to work on the retail, I have orders, I have a lot of things to go for. What I can guarantee you here, that you can restrict how much I can build storage, so I don't come back and say, you know what, it didn't work out, let's just have it all storage. That's number one. Number two is 3,500 square feet. It's not logical for me to leave it vacant. I have to build something in there. 18 months, it's very good. If there is any other solution that we can put in place to guarantee within 18 months, I'm more than happy to give you the guarantee, because I have to jump on it right away. As soon as I have the storage out of my way, I will jump into the coffee bistro immediately. If there is any other, you guys have an experience. If there is any other way other than wait for the certificate or have a escrow somewhere, because I don't want to lock in more cash. I need the cash today more than anything else to continue all the build out. If there is any other way, I'm open for it, and I'll speak on behalf of
Is there any way for us to hold, Scott, is there any way for us to hold the CO on the storage until you can build it? You can lock in your prices, you can lock in your storage and build it, but you can't rent it until you do the bistro. I'm just trying to come up with a win-win, and I'm not busting your chops. I'm coming up with a win-win.
So,
Can I say something?
you have a question for him?
I kind of have, when he was talking about pizzeria, being a pizzeria owner, that doesn't move me in the direction that you want, because I know the challenges, and I know the Paganos, and I know that is not going to be any more of a carrot dangling in 18 months as it was 2 years ago, as the way the market and the industry is. It's tough and getting tougher. So if that's your
why I'm coming
go-to
here for.
guy,
No.
that's not going to push me in the direction that you want.
Commissioner Daniel, that's for a different property, though.
That's for a
not-
different
not
property.
for
That's
here.
No, that's what he's talking about.
No,
No.
It's across the
They
street.
bought a property across the
Oh, I'm
street. The
sorry. I
Matt
thought you were
Batter
talking
in
about
that
on the south
may be-
end.
Yeah, no.
My
Yeah, it's across the
my
road.
apologies.
No.
Okay.
So let's rein this in, because it's been a long meeting, and so I'm hearing from Vice Mayor. I hear you pretty clearly that you tonight are willing to approve this with number 6 still in, or give them time to have him talk, because I don't believe you're authorized tonight to be able to make an assurance
Out of
from.
respect, I have to speak.
No, and that's why I.
Right, so you would give him more
I don't want to
time.
kill it, because if I had to
Right.
vote on this tonight without 6,
Right.
I will vote no.
Right, and so I think too, that then runs the risk of killing the project.
Right.
As well.
And I don't want to do that.
Right, and so I think that, but I'm here tonight willing to strike number 6, if anyone else is, being that the people of Marina Grande, you lived there for 8 years. Were you a resident of Holly Hill?
Absolutely.
The people of Marina Grande, Mr. Walker, are residents of Holly Hill. And Mr. Forte, I've heard it said that there is nothing done for the residents or citizens of Holly Hill, and they live in our city. This is providing a service for them that hasn't been there for 15 years. And so I just have to make that statement for the record that there is still something being done. But if there's ever been a time that this city of Holly Hill has been able to work with the right people that have vision and that have a proven track record over and over, today is the day. Let's get this done. I believe they're going to get it done. It's in their best interest to get it done. If you look at anything they've ever accomplished, especially Mr. Panaggio, he actually doesn't want to build storage. He told me in the meeting that I met, he doesn't, this man has made so much money that he doesn't need to make any more money, literally. And so in his vision, he doesn't even want it. But you being a businessman are saying, hey, look, we need this capital to keep this thing afloat, allow us to be able to take a chance on a cool, new, fresh bistro and restaurant. So I just believe that worst case scenario, let's drive down the path of absolute worst case scenario. You try your hardest, Tarek, and nothing comes in, then those storage units are 100 times better than what we've had for 15 years. So I'm ready to vote yes tonight, striking number 6 in this. And you said you want to talk?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of on that side as well, because I'm going through the same issues, trying to build something for the community and to help out the community. But you can't just give everything to the city for it. You own the property. You have all the residents there. You're not going to farm it out to somebody from the outside, which I bought a unit in that, about 6 or 8 months ago. My brother uses every once in a while. But it's just, I think it's a good thing to do it, and I think the business people, they need to be able to make a profit and do things as well as just say, well, I know the city probably helped out the Marina Grande a lot more, but the Marina Grande helps out the city too. What if we didn't have the CRA and the Marina Grande paying all the money in the CRA and we getting funds from that as well? You know what I mean? We have to do whatever we can to help out the business that actually helps the city of Holly Hill as they're doing it now. And if it's something to help them out and he gives us a promise that he's going to do it, which we know. I don't know him too well, but I do know his business partner, that I'm sure if he says he's going to do it, he's going to do it. Mike will.
The direction I had from Mr. Mike Panaggio is
He's going to do it. He's going to do his best to do it. If economy falls apart, who can control it? You know what I mean?
This is exactly his words.
I would vote for it as well.
He said, I want the nicest bistro in the entire Volusia County that I can be able to bring my friends. I can be able to bring Hyatt Brown in there. He said, I am instructing you specifically, and he knows my taste, to be the top notch. And I told him, here's my wife. I leave my kids and I say, okay, I will get it done. But in the same time, I want to see that it makes sense, for traffic, for all of that. By the way, the Marina Grande resident, they knew about the storage. They put it on their social media on Facebook. Everybody was so happy that something is going into the retail, because every single person I brought so far, they wanted to stay away. And that's why
I think that's the best use I've ever heard of for that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we not intend to
So
keep
far, it hadn't done anything for 15 years.
Commissioner Curry, what is yours?
Like he says, we've got a huge project that kind of caused me to go, because I was not expecting what came out of that project. And I really believed the young man, and I didn't know him from Adam, but I believed his vision and kind of got bit by that one. But I have to say, I don't know you or your wife, but I do know of your partner, and I know things are done the right way. And with you purchasing that, I don't believe that you're going to be an investor that's just going to let 2 spaces just go by the wayside. You're going to want to make as much money as you can.
Exactly.
That's why you're investing. And the fact that sat there for so long, I didn't realize it had been 15 years, though. I know it's been a long time. And to see an idea like that, because that's a great idea for that place. And I really have to believe that you're going to do what you say you're going to do because your money's there. So I'm going to go out on a limb and take a chance on the both of you.
Thank you.
And I think I'll be willing to vote
me too.
yes, striking out 6. So you need a motion or what?
Yeah, I would
Just do it.
entertain a
Just
motion.
break
Our
six and do
relationship
it.
with Holly Hill, it's going to be further
I would
than-
like to make a motion, Mayor, that we strike out line 6 as
Line
we've
6.
spoke about.
Right.
And we move forward with
And I'll
passing
second
this.
it.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Thank you very much, Tark. You can sit down now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we need to open this up to the public. Yes, sir.
Gillis is hanging with us
One for
tonight.
one.
All right. 2002, I was a commissioner. I was there, groundbreaking. I've been waiting for a restaurant for 20 years. Back then, Ballou Road was dark. You drive on Ballou Road, you notice there's activity in the evening. You get into Holly Hill, it's dead. I'm 82. Will I get to see a restaurant on this particular elephant that was built groundbreaking in 2002? Go for it. It's a dark corner. It needs light. Broadway. Thank you.
Thank you, Gillis.
Thank you, Gillis. Is there anybody else? Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak on this tonight?
Nobody else.
Seeing none, I will Yeah, you sure? Okay.
Don't
you gotta-
oversell
You gotta
yourself.
come up to the, you have to come up to the, you can say that to him later.
Yes, I'm Jasmine Nemo Tarek's wife. I was just going to say his first meal and cup of coffee is on us. Another thing I wanted to mention is difference between people who have been involved in the Marina Grande in the past is us and Mike Panaggio are locals. We live here, we're here every day, we're at the Marina Grande every day. So, just want to mention that.
Thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Jasmine. All right. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to the commission tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. I don't think so. And we, discussion now. So who is the maker of the motion? You were the maker.
I don't have any more.
Seconder?
I'm all for it because I'm going through the same thing with these price increases, trying to get things done. Everybody wants more money and hard to get anything done.
Yeah.
And I know how they feel.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just,
Mayor? Yes, sir.
I appreciate your honest answers, Tark. And I don't want to be a fly in the ointment. I don't want you to think I don't support you. I asked you some hard questions, and you gave me confident, concise, I believe, honest answers.
Thank you.
So you have convinced me to support you.
Thank you very much. And as I said, our relationship is going to be down the line. I mean, we have a plan to do many other things in the right way and work hand in hand with the city. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything further, Daniel?
Yes.
Let's vote.
That's all right.
Let's vote.
I'll just say very quickly that your concerns are valid. I don't mean to take anything
Yeah,
away from that at
I'm
all.
not diminishing
Good
your-
questions, and I'm fully there. So with that, we'll take yes, Mr. Walker? Yes.
Do you want the renderings to come back to this commission to see them?
Oh, good question. We
The
did talk
upscale or
about that.
leave it
I
to
don't-
staff?
Yeah, I think
No.
we could leave that to staff.
No.
Mike showed
Unless
us some
there's an
renderings
objection.
last week that were pretty
Good.
impressive.
Mike's good.
Yeah. All right. With that, thank you, though, for pausing us. With that, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Now we'll move on to communications. City Manager, Mr. Forte, nothing. Mr. Simpson, nothing. Valerie, Mrs. Manning, Mr. Kutakis? Yes, sir. Just pull the microphone in front of you for the record.
Close. Everybody knows what I went through, and there are a few people in my life, Tanya being the first, who without her, I can tell you I would not be here today. But I wanted to follow that up with the second person, and that's our city manager, Joe Forte. He was, during the whole entire time, he was in constant contact with Tanya, and he was always checking on me, and when I was better, and I could talk and text, he was always reassuring me not to worry about anything here. He had it covered. And I can tell you that in this city where I've worked. I've dealt with some city managers that I wouldn't let him manage my doghouse. But that man right there, he is a great city manager, and he's a great humanitarian, and I'm proud to call him my friend. It's unbelievable to me. And lastly, well, he's leaving, but I want to say thank you to the commissioners and the mayor for providing a positive atmosphere in which that man can do what he does, because without you guys, he wouldn't be able to do those kind of things like what he does. So I just want to say thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Glad to have you back.
Thank you,
I would have been
Scott.
back sooner, but Joe wouldn't let me come back.
Yeah, we're excited to have you back.
So, thank you, Joe.
Welcome back, and we're glad you're...
Thank you, Mr. Gutakis, and yeah, we thank Mr. Forte. He kept us all very, very up to date on your status, and we were all praying for you here, and we're just so happy that you're back here, and we're hoping that you continue to heal as you go, as we talked about earlier, and we just appreciate having you. So thank you for those words. I'm sure they mean a lot to Mr. Forte, and I'm sure to this commission too. I'll make it very, very quick. I was going to ask Mr. Forte for an update on the possibility of hiring a project manager to come in internally as opposed to ZHA. If there was any update on that, I didn't get to speak with you on that yesterday.
I'll go over individually with you.
Yeah.
We've got other internal plans that we're going to do,
Okay.
reorganizing the department.
Okay.
Giving Steve the opportunity to take over the role as a project manager, but sending him to PMP school so that he gets certified as a project manager, and then hiring a facilities manager. So we'll basically bring project management in-house.
Interesting.
So I
Okay.
just, I redid the org chart for the last couple of days. I'm going to meet with Antoine about it tomorrow, and if everybody's on board, that's the direction we're going to go.
Good, all right. And the reason I bring that up is because we're about to go into budget season, and a lot has been changing, a lot has been moving around, so we're really going to have some detailed budget meetings to discuss all the different...
Got ideas on the budget I'll talk with you about.
Okay, good. All right, and then the last thing that I have is, as I said in the last meeting, I was invited to attend Eclectic Church. They had a tent revival prayer that they came in for several nights in a row and prayed for the city, prayed for the people, and I attended one evening, and I'm sorry if you guys were trying to go Thursday. It was actually Saturday, and so I had Val send that out. I hope you guys got that. Hope you weren't trying to go on Thursday, but it was a really, really nice time. There was a pastor from Ukraine there, and it was a very powerful message that he had. But
The one with his wife?
his wife wasn't there. No, I don't. No, those are Americans that used to go into Russia and Ukraine, and they were there.
Your
They were there.
brother-in-law and the
Yep.
couple and Steve were at our church.
They were there, and it's actual person that's from Ukraine that was speaking Ukrainian and had to have a translator. But anyways, the reason I bring it up is it was just really powerful. It was really nice that we have people, especially there at Eclectic Church, that have been stepping up big time for our community and are just kind of there whenever we ask. And it was really nice that they prayed over this entire commission, our entire city, for all of our citizens. And, I just always welcomed that. So with that, that's all I have tonight. And so now we'll go to Mr. Vice Mayor.
Just appreciate this commission working together, and we don't always agree on everything, but we can get along at the end of the day and move forward. So, thank you.
Amen to that. Thanks for saying that. I should be the one saying that tonight, Charlie.
We had a rough
I was the lone vote on a lot of things.
Been in your shoes a time.
Yeah, it's my turn. All right, Commissioner Curry.
I really don't have much at all. Scott, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but if I get reelected, I need a driver for the parade. Oh, are we getting driverless cars now, or?
Teslas.
You're gonna walk. You're gonna walk.
I'll walk, I don't care. I also appreciate this commission, and you put up with my passion from time to time that I have, and I appreciate that.
Angry to me.
And will you hush? Mr. Forte, I really do appreciate the fact that you're our city manager. I consider you a personal friend. but I tell everybody, we have the best city manager in the state of Florida.
Thank you.
And what you do for our employees, is just phenomenal. So, again, thank you.
Not going to raise.
Commissioner Curry?
Why not?
I tell everybody
Commissioner
we
Daniel?
have the frugalist, how's that, city manager? in
Well,
this
I
county.
do say that,
But he
too.
does the job. No, I have nothing. Just thanks for putting up with 4.5 hours, yeah.
We missed This Is Us.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah. Commissioner Johnson?
I just had a couple of things. Tomorrow I got a TPO meeting, if anybody had anything they want me to bring up, and then I just had a question for Brian. I was reading an email here says that you're a grossly incompetent pathological liar, Brian.
Email too.
What?
Did you see that?
I got that email too.
I won't mention any names because we're on record of where it come from and anything.
Got it
but
too.
I just wonder if
We all got it.
people
I've
put
been
that out.
called worse by better.
Huh?
I've been called worse by better.
Have you really?
I don't even read those.
That's pretty bad, oh, incompetent pathological liar, that's pretty bad. They didn't even call people like that in the military. Things like that, things like
It's almost a compliment this way.
I delete those emails.
All
That
right.
just means you're doing your job.
And it's all capitalized, too. I saw that, I couldn't believe he was talking about our Brian Walker. But,
Passion, I love it.
it went nothing for the TPO. I had one thing I was gonna bring up, that I was trying to get some help from him, but I talked to Mayor Bill just before we had the workshop, and I think he's gonna solve that for me, for the city of Ormond, so. I think that's all I was gonna have for him, except for, I'm still pushing my transportation issues with him every time I go, you know, with, Timber Creek Road and Williamson Boulevard and LPGA and Han Avenue and all, that's my projects. And then one of my main concerns right now is they interchange at US 1 and I-95 up there. I'm pushing that hard to get that southbound exit on I-95 coming out of that Love's Truck Stop. So that's what I have there, but does anybody have anything they want me to bring up at the TPO meeting? Nobody,
Not at this time. I don't see anything.
not even our city manager.
Well, you can get with him.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. That's all I have, I think.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. All right, is there anything further before this commission? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Pretty, Brian, you pretty bad.